Chapter 441 A secret organization. While Zankoku could endure the pain, it wasn't the case with the common people. Unfortunately, the pain didn't allow ordinary people to stay unconscious for long. They screamed until they could no more and merely waited for their eventual death. The ritual continued for 3 days straight. By then, all the 800 people had died. The blood in the canals and the pool had been absorbed into Zankoku's body. All the hearts were missing as well. Zankoku was now sitting at the bottom of the empty pool. The pain he was experiencing had now subsided. Or perhaps he had gotten used to it as his body still felt itchy. He opened his eyes and observed his body. Strange tattoos covered his entire body. However, Zankoku didn't mind. Instead, his focus was entirely on the power he was feeling coursing through his veins. In merely 3 days, his chakra reserves had tripled. In addition, he could feel a strange power in his blood, though he wasn't aware of what it was. Suddenly he heard a voice. "Lord Ketsuoki, are you all right?" He turned his head and noticed that Bishop Ketsuoki had collapsed. He quickly approached him. Ketsuoki was thoroughly exhausted. Though no blood was drawn from his body, his condition wasn't much better than the 800 people who had died. Zankoku was shocked to see his state. Despite being in a terrible state, Ketsuoki wasn't concerned. Instead, a twisted smile could be seen on his face. He exclaimed, "I succeeded, I succeeded, I succeeded, ha ha ha." Ketsuoki's state surprised his followers and Zankoku. None of them had ever seen Ketsuoki lose his composure before. Ketsuoki looked at Zankoku and said, "I lied earlier. This isn't my first time performing this ritual. Instead, it is my 9th time. Unfortunately, the 8 that preceded you didn't have sufficient faith in Lord Jashin and failed during the ritual. As a result, all of them died." Zankoku was shocked to learn that. He understood that the risk he had taken was far greater than what he had imagined it would be. However, he had already performed the ritual and succeeded. Ketsuochi continued, "By completing this ritual, you are now a grand priest. You have the right and the duty to propagate Lord Jashin's name and convert others to Jashin. Take my followers and lead them. The people you convert will also become your followers. Try to build a huge force and always follow the teachings of Jashin." Ketsuoki's passionate speed confused everyone. Zankoku asked, "What do you mean?" Ketsuoki replied, "For the ritual to be successful, a bishop has to supply his life force. Since you succeeded, I will die in a few minutes. However, I have successfully performed my duty and followed Lord Jashin's words and instructions, according to Lord Jashin's divine message. You will gain the power to control your blood. You will be able to use it to attack, defend, and heal yourself. In terms of healing, you will be superior to any ninja currently alive. In terms of power, you will be an elite as well. However, I should warn you. Don't let the power go into your head. There are several ninjas who can still easily defeat you, especially the Kaijus and the elite Junins. Don't challenge the major villagers. Stay hidden and grow your strength and your army in the dark." Zankoku nodded and said, "I will remember your instructions." Ketsuochi smiled and said, "Good, I have completed my duty. I will finally unite with Lord Jashin again." Ketsuoki closed his eyes. A second later he died peacefully, unlike the 800 civilians he had just condemned to death. With Ketsuoki's death, Zankoku took command of his followers. He immediately began planning his revenge. However, he was well aware that he couldn't destroy the Hidden Eagle village alone. For the following year, he targeted individual squads from the Hidden Eagle village that were out for missions. Slowly whittling down their strength, the Hidden Eagle village tried to find who was attacking them but never succeeded. A year later, the Second Great Ninja War finally broke out. During the opening stages of the war, the neighboring Land of Birds invaded the Land of Eagles and annihilated their armies. At the same time, the Hidden Eagle village was attacked by Zankoku and his followers. He took advantage of the fact that most of its ninjas were out of the village to fight the war and reduced it to the same state as his own village, irrespective of their age, gender and ability. Every single person in the village was killed. Just like the Land of Bats, the Land of Eagles was also lost in the long river of history. Both the countries were incorporated into the Land of Birds. Zankoku went into hiding after the destruction of the Land of Eagles. He took advantage of the war and tried to spread Jashin's word to the affected people, increasing his followers. Over the duration of the 2 wars, Zankoku focused on increasing his strength and his followers. The number of priests under him rose from 1 to 7. His nature and morals changed vastly as well, leaving no resemblance with the Zankoku who had just become a grand priest. His own strength became very formidable among elite Junins. Unfortunately, no matter what he did, his strength never rose past that rank. He never became a rank S ninja. As a result, he tried to replicate Ketsuoki's ritual to increase his strength further. Unfortunately for him, he was discovered and eliminated by Fujin's squad. Fujin finally took his palm off Senkoku's head. He had read several important memories from Senkoku's life which had the highest impact on Senkoku. The conversation with his father, the conversation with Ketsuoki, the fall of his village, the ritual, his revenge, a few bouts of madness, and his final fight with the Uchihas were his most impactful memories. Fujin could read them clearly. The rest was very difficult to read and Fujin didn't have much hope of succeeding in doing that. Regardless, he was satisfied with the information he gained. Fujin analyzed. So his name was Sankoku, huh? Looks like he led a rather eventful life. He was lucky to be born as the son of the village leader and be quite talented. If everything had been peaceful, he would have succeeded his father and led the village. Unfortunately, this world is anything but peaceful. His father was too pacifist and didn't listen to his suggestions. As a result, the entire village was wiped out, leaving him as the lone survivor. However, everything might not be as straightforward as it seems. After all, these memories just show things from Sankoku's perspective. For starters, why did that Ketsuoki guy approach Sankoku? And how did Ketsuoki know that the Hidden Eagle village would invade in the future? Did he just guess the trends of the world, or did he work behind the scenes to make that invasion happen? Or is there really someone called Jashin who conveys messages like this? But who could be such an entity? More importantly, what would he gain by creating a few grand priests? Is there another being like Kaguya who is sealed on this planet and trying to get out? Only in that case would it make any sense. But who is it and who sealed him? Fujin thought for a bit. However, he didn't have any information to make any guesses. Fujin decided to stop thinking about it. He analyzed further. There is just too little information. Ketsuoki mentioned several times that Jashin instructed him and he heard Jashin's voice. However, Sankoku doesn't have any memory of any such voice guiding him. Other than feeling a sense of compulsion, there was nothing unusual in his life. So, it is impossible to say whether Ketsuoki was telling the truth or whether he just made it all up for some reason. Oh well, no point in thinking about such an entity, even if I find it. It won't help me unless I get a lot stronger and can subdue it. Rather than thinking about such an entity, the Jashin cult is worth paying more attention to. This Ketsuoki fellow had the rank of a bishop. The members of Jashin are generally divided into 4 ranks. That is, the Grand Priest, the devotees and the servants, with the Grand Priest having the highest authority and the servants having the least. As for the bishop, Sankoku never met another in his life. It seems like the bishops perform the rituals which can create a Grand Priest. Most likely they all die on creating a Grand Priest. This way, the Grand Priest's knowledge will be limited to what the bishop passed down to him. He won't be able to threaten the place or organization from where the bishop came. If I assume that this is the case, then there is perhaps a secret sect or a secret cult of Jashin somewhere in this world. Hiruzen, the matchmaker. While Fujin was researching about the Jashin, Hiruzen was sitting in his office facing a different headache. Hiruzen was staring intently at the 3 letters on his desk. Despite his decades of experience, Hiruzen was left clueless about how to handle the situation in front of him. The 3 letters were sent to him by the Hyuga, Yamanaka, and the Inuzuka clan leaders. All 3 letters were extremely similar to one another. He cursed, "That brat, just when I thought that he won't trouble me again. He caused me headaches once again. Though I can't fault him on this one, he is still the reason for this headache. Sigh, I'm getting too old, though they don't state it specifically. Don't they have any shame asking a widowed old man to decide something like this?" The letters from the 3 clan leaders requested Fujin to be the Junin sensei of teams of their respective children. Some time ago, Hyuga clan compound Hyuga Haishi sat in front of a table writing a letter. Once he was done, he read it while wondering, is this the right thing to do? He fell into deep thought for a few minutes. Finally, his expression became resolute as he thought, Hinata is too timid and soft. As she is now, she won't be able to accomplish much as a ninja. The chances of that changing is negligible. Once the time comes, there will be no other choice but to put the seal on her. Haishi stopped thinking. He had seen what had happened with his brother due to the seal. If possible, he would choose to not have either of his daughters be branded by the curse seal. Unfortunately, that was a difficult task and against their customs. He thought, Suzuki Fujin is almost opposite to her. Though not a lot of his information is available even to us clan leaders, there is little question about how lethal and ruthless he is on the battlefield. Though I failed, there might be some hope for him to succeed. Even if he doesn't, if he trains Hinata, it'll give me several opportunities to interact with him. I'll take these opportunities to get closer to him and ask him to marry Hinata. The reason to brain the curse seal on branch members is for their safety on the battlefield. However, what better safety there will be than being with a rank S ninja, not to mention, there is no way someone like him will allow his partner to be branded by the curse seal. I can use the pressure applied by a rank S ninja to avoid branding Hinata with the curse seal. That will be the best for her. I just hope everything goes well. Yamanaka clan compound. Just like Heishi, Inoichi had written a letter as well. His request was the same as well. He asked Fujin to be Ino's Junin sensei. Inoichi thought, I hadn't expected Fujin to be a good teacher as well. After all, Kakashi, despite his prowess, failed every team he was assigned, and he was assigned the top teams of each year. Unlike him, Fujin already has shown great signs despite being much younger. From what Ino says, Naruto has steadily become stronger this year. His taijutsu has improved, and within a few months, he has mastered some winjutsus. When I heard that Fujin had taken an interest in Naruto, I thought that he wanted to create an influence over Konoha's only Jinwekurick. I never expected that he'd surprise me. Such progress by someone like Naruto is shocking. If Fujin can be assigned to Ino's team, she will benefit a lot. So will Shikamaru and Choji. Though Lord Hokage wants Asuma to be their Junin sensei, our three clans are already very close to the Sarutari clan. There won't be any change. However, with Fujin, there are a lot of benefits. I'll ask Shikaku and Choza to back me up as well. Not to mention Fujin is an orphan without any clan. If they fall in love and he marries Ino, he'd be a part of the Yamanaka clan as well. With a rank S ninja among our ranks and 2 votes on the council, I could increase the amount of benefits the Yamanaka clan gets several times. Inoichi sent the letter to Hiruzen and asked Shikaku and Choza to do the same very soon as well. Inuzuka clan compound Tsume wrote a similar letter as well while thinking. Although Kiba has talent, he lacks discipline and focus. I still recall how much that kid trained in the 5 days he was in the central tower in the Forest of Death. If he can instill that discipline in Kiba, then I wouldn't need to worry. A smirk appeared on her face as she thought. Of course, if he becomes Kiba's Junin sensei, then it'll provide me a chance to push Hana closer to him. That girl is still very reserved. I need to teach her a thing or two about being a woman. Back to the present, Hiruzen stayed in his chair while wondering what he should do. Though he could very easily see what the true goal of the clan leaders was, he still needed to make a decision. He analyzed. What should I do? In terms of relationships, I'm a lot closer to Inoichi. However, the Hyuga clan has a lot more influence. Not to mention, the Inuzuka clan is with them as well on this matter. While forming a squad, Hyuga and Inuzuka ninjas are the most preferred teammates due to their abilities. I can defend both of them at the same time. Hiruzen massaged his forehead while thinking. That said, what luck this brat has. 3 clan leaders want to set him up with their daughters. Now that I think about it, the same should have happened with Minato. He was even more impressive than Fujin at this age. However, he was already in a relationship with Kushina by the time he gained fame. No one dared to make a move fearing Kushina's response. Since Fujin isn't in any relationship, nothing is stopping them. Fortunately, Hinata and Ino are still very young and Fujin is stronger than the clan leaders. Otherwise, they might have gone past me and directly tried to do something. As Hiruzen was thinking, he heard a voice. What interesting letters, sensei. This brat's luck makes even the great toad sage Jiraiya feel envy, ha ha ha. Hiruzen looked behind him to see that Jiraiya was sitting at the window. He looked at him with annoyance. Without being asked for, Jiraiya gave his free advice. Why don't you just put the 3 of them in one squad? Won't that solve the issue? Just imagine that lucky brat with 3 girls. He'll be in heaven and hell at the same time. It'll be fun to watch. I'll get so much more research material for my next book. Hiruzen looked at the letters again as he asked, solve the issue or raise 100 new ones. The Inoshika-chu formation can't be disrupted. With the 3 of them working together, they can become a rank S-level threat in the future, just like their parents. It's not something we can give up on for some whim, he thought. Besides, what fun will I get to watch? Those girls won't come of age for the next 6 years. Will I be even still alive and kicking by them? Even if I am, this brat hides behind a million seals. Even my crystal ball doesn't work. Who knows what he needs so much privacy for? Jiraiya said, stop being a party pooper, sensei. Just imagine that my next book can be titled, The Orphan and the 3 Princess. Hiruzen looked at Jiraiya with a tick mark on his forehead. Jiraiya chuckled and asked, so, what will you do? Hiruzen answered, what can I do? I'll obviously need to ignore their real agenda. As for the decision, I'll leave it to Fujin. Let him decide. Jiraiya sighed and said, that's boring. Hiruzen glanced at him and said, If you want to make it interesting, come take this seat. Feel free to do whatever you want to then. Jiraiya immediately replied, no thanks, I am out. A cloud of smoke suddenly appeared and Jiraiya disappeared within the smoke. Hiruzen cursed internally, at this rate, I'll have to do paperwork until I am 100 years old. I need to quickly find someone to dump these never-ending files on. He looked at the 3 letters and muttered to himself, enjoy, for now, kiddo. I promise that your future years won't be this carefree. Hiruzen decided to leave the choice to Fujin. He didn't want any more headaches. As for Fujin, he was completely unaware of the fact that 2 grown men and 1 woman were about to force their daughters on him as soon as he returned back to the village. Whether he'd be pleased or annoyed remains to be seen. Chapter 442. So many complications. Fujin continued analyzing. That secret organization is likely responsible for training the bishops and sending them into the elemental nations to create grand priests. If that is indeed the case, then, even if a grand priest did something extreme and all the known Jashins were hunted and killed as a result, the religion itself would never be in danger of extermination. The only other way would be if Jashin himself appointed his bishops and directed them towards the grand priest. However, in that case, no one will be able to find anything, and I can't do anything either, so there is no point in thinking about this possibility. Still, it seems like there are some similarities among the grand priests chosen. Haiden and Zankoku were both from minor villages. They weren't satisfied with the pacifist leader and wanted to expand their village's military power rapidly, and both were quite talented for someone from minor villages. Anyway, I'll consider them later on. For now, my only focus is on blood manipulation. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like I can get my hands on it easily. Fujin had a serious expression on his face. He recalled all the details of the ritual that gave Zankoku the ability to manipulate blood. He analyzed, well, I did learn a lot of surprising information. The most surprising is what was used to conduct the ritual. It was Fuin Jutsu, or rather, a combination of Fuin Jutsu and Juin Jutsu. I'm not sure who or what Jashin is, but that bishop was definitely a grandmaster in Fuin Jutsu. The seals he inscribed on the 800 ordinary people and Zankoku were all Juin Jutsu, whereas the seals and symbols covering the cave were Fuin Jutsu. Unfortunately, Zankoku wasn't a Fuin Jutsu grandmaster. He wasn't even a seal master. Despite participating in the ritual, he didn't pay much attention to what Ketsuoki did. Even after Ketsuoki died, he didn't try to learn it and merely focused on his revenge and spreading the word of Jashin. As such, he had no idea how to recreate the ritual. It was only when his strength began dropping due to age that he became interested in it. Unfortunately, it was too late by then. He revisited that old cave, but it wasn't in the best shape due to being abandoned for decades. Fortunately, one of his priests was a seal master. He spent a lot of time studying the seals that still remained in the cave. With the help of Zankoku, the seal master priest, and the one priest who used to follow Ketsuoki before his death, they managed to recreate the ritual. Unfortunately, it wasn't perfect. They were still missing several seals, and there were many seals that the seal master couldn't comprehend. As such, he had to remove several parts of the ritual and only managed to create a substandard ritual, one which couldn't even hold half of the 800 people that Ketsuoki's ritual could. To make matters worse, it could only work on children aged 2 to 6. What makes it even more unattractive is the fact that they weren't 100% sure that the ritual would work, and despite being involved, Senkoku still doesn't know entirely about the seals, as even the simpler seals were very complicated for him. Fujin let out a sigh and thought, if I could read Ketsuoki's memories, I'm 90% sure that I'll be able to succeed easily. Unfortunately, that bastard died decades ago. Even if I find him, there is no way any of his memories are still intact. The only possible way to extract information from him is by using Edo Tensei. Unfortunately, extracting that jutsu from Hiruzen would be impossible. I might have a better chance of getting it from Danzo. Fujin began analyzing again. Depending on just Sankoku's memories wouldn't be reliable enough. He calculated, I guess there is just one way for me to learn how to perform that ritual. I need to go to that cave and inspect the seals myself. At the very least, I'll be able to do a far better job than a seal master. However, there are a few more complications. Ketsuoki said that 8 people had failed before Zankoku succeeded. He also said that Zankoku needs to have complete faith in Jashin. Ketsuoki even spent 5 years slowly influencing Zankoku and ensuring that he was completely devoted to Jashin. If that is indeed a requirement, Then there will be no way for me to perform it and learn blood manipulation. I have no intention of joining that crazy cult and worshipping a fake or a lunatic god. Another issue is that these rituals definitely have a side effect, a rather nasty one at that. Though Zankoku never heard any word from Jashin, he frequently kept getting an urge to kill someone and drain their blood. He kept his urge under control for several years, but eventually, he couldn't do so anymore. By the time he died, he pretty much had a fetish for blood. He also had an unnatural urge to recruit more followers. Considering all the complications, the best way for me would be to bypass the ritual and directly gain the ability to manipulate my blood. It shouldn't be impossible to do so. After all, Ketsuochi merely used Juin Jutsu. Be it to suck blood from people or to give Zankoku this ability, if I can just study the seals in Zankoku's body, I might be able to imitate them. In fact, when I first saw the ritual, that was my intention. But Fujin once again focused on Zankoku's dead body in front of him. His eyes glowed and looked restlessly as if he wanted to find something. As time passed, frustration could be seen on Fujin's face. He couldn't help but curse, "Where the fuck are the seals that were supposed to be on his body? Don't tell me those damned Uchihas wiped out everything." One complication after another left Fujin feeling a bit depressed and annoyed. He raised a small rock from the ground and sat in front of Zankoku's dead body while calming down himself and thinking about the situation. After some time, he realized, wait a minute. Why would the Uchihas wipe out the seals on his body unless they made some progress in replicating it and wanted to stop anyone else from gaining it? But they already had his body with them. How would anyone else study it? Not to mention, they didn't wipe out any markings that were on his body. So why would they only clear out the seals? Now that I think about it, I had observed this guy carefully when he fought with the Uchiha Junins. Back then, though I wasn't a Grand Master, I was already a seal master, even if his seals were complicated. I should have been able to detect them, even if I didn't understand them. So why couldn't I? On calming himself down, Fujin realized that he had missed two important points. He analyzed further. Another point to consider is the Juin Jutsu itself. There is no Juin Jutsu in Konoha and perhaps any other elemental villages that can give such a crazy ability. Now that I think about it, I haven't heard of any of the dead Usamakis having such ability either. Fujin's eyes suddenly widened as he realized a crucial point. He gazed at Zankoku's dead body once again and cursed. Shit, how did I miss such a simple point? This Juin Jutsu, it likely has nothing to do with having faith in Jashin. Rather, it is at an entirely different level than what we ninjas practice, a Juin Jutsu that can inscribe seals on and in the body so intricately that it fuses with the body and becomes a part of it. That is probably why I can't see any seals on his body. They most likely still exist, but they have already become a part of his body. Most probably his body has been modified by that ritual, just like Haiden. If I can learn this. Fujin felt a wave of excitement flowing through his body. A whole new world had opened up in front of him. He had a feeling that his strength would increase tremendously if he grasped this knowledge. He felt that this could be a way to surpass the S rank. Fujin muttered, I have a feeling that I can escape the limits of the human body and lifespan if I can grasp this. Though I might not become as strong as Hashirama or Madara, the benefits will be far more significant than a simple increase in strength. Chapter 443 Medical Ninjutsu and a New Target. Fujin felt that his speculation was on point. His mind quickly began calculating how he could learn that level of Juin Jutsu. His eyes landed on the dead body in front of him as he thought. One way will be to study this dead body properly. I need to understand what biological changes Zankoku experienced after undergoing the ritual. I will need to compare his body to a normal body and experiment to understand which seals could cause such a change. That could form a base for me to understand how a Juin Jutsu of this level could be created. To reach that stage, I will first have to properly study and research this dead body. Unfortunately, I have zero expertise in this field. To be able to do that, I will need to take up Yoshi's offer and pursue medical ninjutsu. But Fujin had a headache. He was already learning a lot. He specialized in ninjutsu and had mastered well over 50 jutsus. While his main focus was on the wind element, he had also learnt several powerful ninjutsu of lightning, fire and earth elements. In addition, he was also working on space-time ninjutsu, which was entirely different from any other ninjutsu. Though ninjutsu was his speciality, he had diversified his skills a lot already. In terms of Fuin Jutsu, he was already at the highest rank in the ninja world. Considering the speed of his progress, very few would be able to claim to be as good as him at Fuin Jutsu after a few years. His Tai Jutsu was extremely strong as well. Not only did he know 2 of the strongest fighting styles, he also knew the forbidden 8 inner gates formation, and he could open 2 inner gates. That alone made him one of the strongest Tai Jutsu users in the ninja world. While his Genjutsu wasn't as spectacular as the other 3 fields, Fujin was still better than any special Junin who specialized in that field. More importantly, he had developed the skills to counter the Sharingan, and was extremely good at detecting and breaking Genjutsu. If Fujin worked on medical ninjutsu, then it would take a lot of his time and energy. Even with shadow clones, it won't be an easy task. Fujin sighed at the thought of increasing his already ridiculous workload. He decided, I have no choice, it looks like I have to work on this aspect. Even if not today, I might need this skill sometime in the future. In fact, I have a feeling that I'll be needing these skills a lot in the future. That said, researching dead bodies isn't an easy task, though I came from a technologically advanced world. I never focused on improving my medical knowledge, so I won't have any advantage over others in this world, despite the advances in my previous world. Not to mention, being able to research something as complicated as Sankoku's body can probably be done by only a handful of ninjas. The only ones that come to mind are Tsunade, Orochimaru, and maybe Kabuto and Sori. The process of studying his body will be far more efficient if I can get the help of one of them. However, how can I get their help? While Fujin's analysis was logical, he had no method of cooperating with either of those 4 or anyone else who was very good at this aspect. He thought enviously, to have a subordinate like Kabuto. That bastard is extremely lucky. Maybe I should focus on raising ninjas that can assist me in this regard. Yeah, that will be the best. If I can raise or recruit someone who is very good at medical ninjutsu and researching, then my work will be simplified. After all, it is unrealistic to assume that I can reach the top in every field. If I hit a limit, then all my plans related to this would have to be dropped. If I can raise someone talented at this, I will only need to improve my medical knowledge sufficiently to ensure that I don't get tricked. I will begin working closely with Yoshi after I master the Flying Thunder God and make a curse seal. Once my expertise in medical ninjutsu improves and I get help from someone capable, I can begin researching the changes the ritual and the seals brought to his body. However, this will be a long-term plan. There is actually another way for me to learn more about this level of Juin Jutsu. That way is Haiden. Fujin stored Sankoku's body back in the scroll. He removed all the traces he left in the cave, left the cave and began moving back to Konoha. En route, he analyzed. If a bishop is indeed needed to perform the sacrificial ritual, then a bishop should already be in touch with Haiden. I need to find that bishop and read his memories. If his strength is the same as Ketsuochi's, then it wouldn't be a problem for me to neutralize him. His memories should clear all my doubts. I might even understand the high-level Juin Jutsu that the bishops use. That said, I don't think that he would know the ritual to become able to manipulate blood. After all, Haiden didn't have that ability. His ability was immortality. I wonder if the bishop sucked out the life force from ordinary people or something like that. Regardless, Haiden's ability is even more broken. I won't complain if I can gain that. Even if he doesn't have the information, as long as I can find the location of that secret Jushin sect or cult, I will achieve my goal. Once I master the Flying Thunder God, I'll directly attack them and read their memories one member at a time. As a society that has been hiding for a long time and has such a high level of Juin Jutsu, its strength should be quite high, but since they don't dare to expose themselves, it implies that their strength is far weaker than the 5 great villages. As long as I watch out for any Juin Jutsu traps, they shouldn't be able to stop me, and considering their mysterious means, the knowledge they have might be as good, or even better than what the Usomoki clan had. Reading his mind will also allow me to understand whether there really is a Jushin who speaks with them or if it is just some scheme they are running to achieve some goal. The only issue with this plan is that capturing and reading the memories of that bishop can affect Haiden's ritual. If it doesn't go through, then Akatsuki's structure might undergo some changes. However, even if it causes some changes to the future, I know the benefits of doing so are too high. Akatsuki's goals won't change even if Haiden doesn't join them. While my strength will grow several folds due to doing this, I will do it now. I'll return to the village and take some elimination missions in the Land of Hot Water. Once I find Haiden and the priest, I will find my answers. Fujin returned to the village at a high speed, resting just once during the night. While he rested during the night, Fujin had a thought and his expression became very peculiar. He thought, in my previous life, Whenever I read about someone working with dead bodies, I would always feel very weird and get a creepy feeling due to the nature of the job. It was even more so in anime when I read about characters like Danzo, Orochimaru and Kabuto experimenting with them. However, I unknowingly spent the last few days studying a head that I cut off and a dead body I have been storing for over 3 years. When did I become like this? Fujin was left speechless by the realization. While the excessive amount of killing he did in this world meant that he no longer felt any stigma while inspecting the dead bodies. He never thought that someday he would become so focused on studying dead bodies and even plan on improving his medical knowledge to do that better. Fujin just shook his head and thought, I doubt the me who had just arrived in this world would be able to connect with the present me. Oh well, nothing I can do about it. Surprisingly, it isn't that hard to get used to being around dead bodies. Fujin began resting for the night and continued his journey the next day. In Konoha, Hiruzen was working in his office when he received a high-priority scroll from the daimyo of the Land of Hot Water. As Hiruzen read the details in the scroll, a frown appeared on his face. He thought, I expected them to face troubles in becoming a peaceful country, but this is just too much. No wonder the daimyo is panicking so much. Still, this resembles a lot with that particular mission. Hiruzen thought for a bit and instructed, Takao, call Fujin to my office. Chapter 444 Fujin's Frustration. Fujin arrived in Konoha a couple of hours before noon. He went straight to the Hokage building and was about to walk into the mission center when someone called out his name. Fujin turned around to see Hatake Takao coming towards him. Takao appeared in front of Fujin and said, Fujin, here you are. I visited your house and the 23rd training grounds in the morning to find you. Takao had gone to look for Fujin in the morning following Hiruzen's instructions. However, he wasn't at his house or in the training ground. Instead, he met Naruto, who informed him that Fujin hadn't returned from his mission. He went to the mission center to confirm it and informed Hiruzen about the same. As a result, Hiruzen had begun creating another squad. However, as luck would have it, Takao had come down for some work at the same time that Fujin arrived at a Hokage building. Fujin raised an eyebrow and asked, Does Lord Hokage need me? Fujin was surprised. It hadn't even been a few minutes since he had returned to the village, and yet Hiruzen was looking for him. Takao nodded and answered, Lord Hokage was looking for you earlier in regard to a mission. You should meet him and see if he still needs you to go for it. Fujin wondered. A mission right when I wanted to head to the Land of Hot Water. Sigh, I hope it is in that country or some place beyond it. Fujin replied, All right, I'll go see him. He handed Takao a scroll and said, Hand it to Shichiro. It contains mission files and dead bodies that had to be collected. Please inform him that I have completed all the missions. Takao accepted the scroll and replied. Sure. Fujin walked over to Hiruzen's office and entered the room. Hiruzen looked at Fujin and said with a smile on his face, It is good to see you, Fujin. How did your missions go? Fujin casually answered. They went well. There were no complications. Hiruzen said. Good, come sit. I have received a mission from the daimyo of the Land of Hot Water, which is eerily similar to one of your past missions. Fujin sighed in relief upon hearing that. The mission was exactly where he wanted to head to. As for which mission it was, Fujin didn't think much. He had been on hundreds of missions and couldn't speculate which mission Hiruzen was hinting at. Unfortunately, Hiruzen's next words would shock Fujin. Hiruzen said, In recent times, the Land of Hot Water has been reducing their military strength and are depending more on us and the Land of Iron for solving their issues. Their country is transforming from a militaristic state to a tourist destination due to the large number of hot springs in their country. However, some ninjas aren't happy with this trend. One of those ninjas killed 18 Yugakure ninjas and a few dozen civilians before escaping. They arranged for ninjas to hunt him down but couldn't find him. More importantly, while they were hunting him, over 300 people went missing all of a sudden from the small villages in their country. They are unsure if the two events are linked, but some feel that the same ninja is behind the kidnapping. They have issued a rank Ace mission to our village. I want you to go to the Land of Hot Water and find and rescue the missing people. If the same ninja is involved, kill or capture him depending on the situation. Otherwise, ignore him. The ninja is called Haiden. Hiruzen's words left Fujin stunned. He was so stunned that he even forgot to hide his emotions. Hiruzen noticed it and asked, Is something the matter? Fujin realized his mistake and calmed himself down. He shook his head and answered, It sounds like that cult named Jashin. Our mission involving them had gotten rather nasty. If those people have been missing for a long time, and if no new people have gone missing for some time, then I'm afraid that it will be too late. While he answered in a calm tone, Fujin's mind was anything but calm. He cursed. What the fuck, that bastard couldn't wait a few days. I hope the ritual isn't complete yet. I don't care about Haidun, but I need that bishop's memories. Fujin was extremely pissed and frustrated. His attempt to learn blood manipulation by reading Zankoku's memories met a huge number of complications, leaving him unable to replicate it in the short term. Fortunately, he thought of a method to get it easily. However, even before he could act on it, that method was snatched away from him. The entire ordeal left him mentally exhausted. He muttered to himself, "It almost feels like someone is making my life difficult and enjoying my sufferings." Hiruzen didn't know about Fujin's internal struggle. He replied, "Yes, it is worrying. The killings happened 3 weeks ago. People started going missing a few days later. The last case of a missing person was reported 6 days ago, so time is precious. I have already arranged 3 members and was looking at who was available to lead them. Fortunately, you came back at the right time. I'll leave this mission to you. Leave right away. Meet up with the daimyo and get the exact information." Hiruzen tossed Fujin the scroll. Fujin caught it and said, "All right, I'll move immediately." He was about to leave when he suddenly had an idea. His feet stopped and he looked at Hiruzen and thought, "Isn't he supposed to be the professor? I wonder if he knows about this." Fujin said, "I recently faced a question while training. I wonder if you know something about this." Hiruzen asked, "What did you face?" Fujin replied, "I was wondering whether we can use Juin Jutsu to permanently strengthen ourselves or give us new abilities." Hiruzen was surprised by the question and became serious. He hadn't expected Fujin to ask such a question. He wondered, did he witness anyone having such abilities, or did he just think it by itself? Hiruzen couldn't be sure. He asked, "Are you aware of the Usamoki clan?" Fujin nodded. Even though almost no one from Fujin's generation would know about the Usamoki clan, Hiruzen wasn't surprised to know that Fujin knew about them, considering how much time he spent in the library and learning the seals. He said, "Most of the Fuin Jutsu and Juin Jutsu in Konoha come from the Usamoki clan." Fujin had speculated it to be the case, so he wasn't surprised. Hiruzen continued, "The Usamoki clan was a step ahead of the world in terms of sealing. It was why they were considered a threat by other villages and annihilated before the start of the Second Great Ninja War. However, even in the Usamoki clan, a seal like you said was never propagated. It was only during their final struggle that their leader, Usamoki Ashina, showed abilities similar to what you described. I'm not sure what exactly you mean by giving permanent abilities. But I guess you mean being able to do something beyond what normal seals should. The seals Usamoki Ashina used touched that concept, and were speculated to be able to take our understanding of Fuin Jutsu and Juin Jutsu to the next level. However, with his death, the technique was lost. I'm not sure why he never taught the technique to anyone else in his clan. Or perhaps he did, but no one else was able to learn. Another possibility could be that everyone who he taught those seals was killed in the war. Or perhaps someone survived and the knowledge still exists but that person has kept it a secret." Fujin was surprised by the answer. Though he had asked Hiruzen, he wasn't expecting Hiruzen to know anything about it. He thought, Usamoki Ashina. Wasn't he the leader of the Usamoki clan when Hashirama was alive? Unfortunately, I barely remember anything about him. Now that I think about it, I don't think much was shown about him anyway. I wonder if these Juin Jutsu seals were passed down in the Usamoki clan, or if he created those seals by himself. Regardless, it shows that even if you don't worship Jashin, you can create seals that are similar to the ones that form in the ritual, or at least have the potential to reach that level. Fujin asked, "Did no one try to investigate what seals they were? Also, what abilities did the seal give him?" Chapter 445 Usamoki Ashina, Danzo's suspicion, Hiruzen's admiration. Hiruzen answered, Usamoki Ashina was a rank S ninja who specialized in sealing. His ability in sealing was so good that even other rank S ninjas, including myself, wouldn't want to face him in a one-on-one battle. It made him a grave threat on the battlefield. The other villagers attacked the Usamoki clan only when he had grown very old and hadn't been active for over a decade. The combined armies of several countries assaulted them. Though the attacking armies suffered high losses due to the traps set around Uzushio Gakure, their numerical advantage allowed them to endure the losses and attack the village, when it looked like the fall of Uzushio Gakure was inevitable. Ashina appeared once again. He used a technique that allowed him to regain his youth and return to his peak. As a result, the invaders suffered even more losses. Unfortunately, he was facing 3 Kages at the same time. We wanted to reinforce the Usamoki clan. Unfortunately, a large portion of our forces, including myself, were deployed against the Kumo border, who had arrived with their full force led by the 3rd Reikage. In addition, other villages had also deployed small armies along our borders, forcing us to spread our armies and top-level ninjas. By the time we realized what was happening and sent an army to reinforce the Usamoki clan, it was too late. Usamoki Ashina had fallen, and Uzushio Gakure was no more. His body was taken by the 3rd Mizukage, and Kirigujka extensively studied the seals on his body. However, they never found the seals that allowed Ashina to revert back to his peak, hence that is now considered a lost technique. A hint of sadness could be heard in Hiruzen's voice. Konoha had lost a strong ally in that war. As a result, Konoha suffered a lot more losses than they would have in the 2 great wars. Fujin's mind was completely occupied by those seals. As such, he didn't register the sadness in Hiruzen's voice. He analyzed the information and asked, "Doesn't Lady Tsunade also have an ability that allows her to maintain her youth?" Hiruzen shook his head and said, "That isn't the same. Tsunade's technique is her own. Though it involves some seals, it is mainly based on her expertise in medical ninjutsu, and there are limits. Usamuki Ashina's transformation was very pure. From the intel we gained, his body was full of lithofos and chakra when he activated whichever seals he did. It didn't seem like he was an old man who was extracting all that he had left, instead looked like someone who was at his prime. More importantly, they didn't discover any side effects or backlash of the seal he was using. We speculated that he was working on a seal that would allow him to permanently become younger or at least expand his life force significantly. Had Uzushio Gakure not been attacked, it was likely that he would have succeeded, and Uzushio Gakure might have become the 6th major ninja village. Unfortunately, that wasn't to be. Fujin analyzed, not being able to find the seals. That sounds exactly like what happened with Zankoku. Despite being a grandmaster, I'm at a loss. Considering that they have the body, they might have even tried to open up his body and study him thoroughly. Still, they failed. Sigh, the difficulty is as high as I imagined. Fujin replied, "I see, a shame that he died before he could complete it. Anyway, thanks for letting me know. If I have any more ideas regarding this, I'll discuss it with you. Anyway, who will be going with me on this mission?" Hiruzen replied, "This mission will be a searching mission. You will have special Junin in Yuzuka Shiro. Junin Hyuga Hiso and Junin Yamanaka Ken helping you. Shiro and Hisao will be good for tracking, while Ken can help you in information gathering if needed." Fujin nodded. The team was good and he was familiar with one of them. He said, "Just have them meet me. We will leave immediately. I'll explain the mission on the way." Hiruzen nodded. Within a few minutes, all 3 of them gathered in the office. Fujin left with the 3 of them immediately. On leaving the village, he looked towards the direction of the land of hot water and wished, "I hope that I'm not too late. Finding another clue regarding Jashin will be very difficult and entirely luck-based." The 4 of them and Shiro's ninja dog moved rapidly towards their destination. Back in Konoha, a figure rushed into the underground route office. He entered Danzo's office and reported, "Lord Danzo, Suzuki Fujin returned to the village, but he was sent to another mission by Lord Hokage. He led a team of 2 Junins and 1 special Junin. I couldn't find out what the mission is and where he is heading to, as the mission was given directly by Lord Hokage." Danzo frowned on hearing that. He analyzed. "He returned, but the 2 I sent after him are still missing. Did he sense and eliminate them? But sensing them shouldn't have been easy, and even if he did, why would he kill them?" While Fujin had displayed that he had no love for Root, Danzo didn't see any reason why he would kill a Konoha ninja. After all, there were several powerful ninjas in Konoha who didn't like Root. However, that didn't mean that they would kill them on sight. Even if the Root ninjas were in the wrong, they would show restraint and discuss with Hiruzen. In the worst-case scenario, they would arrest the Root ninjas and ask Hiruzen to investigate. Danzo concluded, it is unlikely that he would kill them unless they tried to assassinate him. However, neither of them sent me any messages. It implies that they were killed within a few hours of leaving the village. And they were instructed to not make any reckless moves anytime soon. Did they encounter someone else who killed them? But who? Did Suna send an elite Junin to infiltrate into the Land of Fire again? Or was it someone else who has hostility towards Konoha ninjas, or at least our Ambu forces? Danzo couldn't be sure. He looked at the ninja in front of him and instructed, "Take 2 squads and inspect the path Fujin should have traveled." According to the information, he took missions to eliminate bandit camps and rogue ninjas to the south, trace his steps and find signs of any battles along or near the route. Inspect carefully, as there might have been an attempt to cover up any signs of battle. Also, find out who left the village along the same route after Fujin, and after how long. The route ninja replied, "All right, Lord Danzo." He flickered out of the room and began assembling a team. A few minutes later, route ninjas began trailing the steps Fujin took a few weeks ago. Meanwhile, Hiruzen, who was unaware of the hidden exchange between Fujin and Danzo, kept thinking about his little discussion with Fujin. He thought, though some simpler seals can be used to add more defenses to the body, there is no way to truly strengthen a ninja with the help of it. In fact, the main concept behind Juin Jutsu is to restrict enemies, to think of using it as an enhancer instead. No wonder he managed to become a grandmaster so quickly and with minimal guidance. Seems like the next revolution in seals will come from Konoha. A smile appeared on Hiruzen's face. He could see the benefits Konoha would enjoy if Fujin succeeded in doing that. Of course, he didn't have very high hopes considering the crazy level of difficulty. Fujin's squad moved at a high speed and managed to reach Yugature the next day at noon despite taking a couple of breaks. Fujin had informed them about what the mission was. Due to the state of the mission, none of them slacked off. To add to it, Fujin made everyone move at a rapid speed. He didn't care much if those three couldn't help him in combat. He just wanted to find Hayden quickly. As soon as they reached, Fujin met up with the daimyo. Sitting in the conference room, Fujin said, "I have gone through the information you provided, Lord Hokage. Do you have any additional information on the movements of Hayden or the news of any more missing people?" The daimyo replied, "Unfortunately, there is no new news. The last person, who was reported to be missing, disappeared a week ago. No new kidnapping has happened since then. However, we haven't found any traces of the missing people." Fujin had already thought about how to approach this mission while he was moving towards the land of hot water. Without missing a beat, he said, "Tell me the areas that you had suspected the most, irrespective of whether you searched for those places or not." Chapter 446, Finding the Hiding Spot. Fujin's words surprised the daimyo and the Yugakure ninjas, who were rather offended by the statement. One of them asked, "What do you mean? Do you want to say that we couldn't find them, despite looking in the right area?" In front of the daimyo, he didn't dare to explode in anger. However, his tone displayed his anger and dissatisfaction at being treated in this manner. He thought, even if he is from Konoha, who does he think he is to look down on us? We fought in wars even before he was born. Unfortunately for him, Fujin wasn't in the mood to be patient with him. He nodded and nonchalantly said, "Yes." Fujin's brazen disregard for their pride caught everyone, including the daimyo, off guard. Even Fujin's teammates looked at him with surprise, though they looked down on ninjas from the minor villages. They never spoke about it in front of them. For a moment, everyone in the room was left speechless. Before any of the Yugature ninjas exploded in anger, Fujin looked at the daimyo and said, "These incidents resemble the way in which a cult called Jashin operates. I had faced them in a mission earlier in the Land of Grass, and more than 200 kids would have died had we been late by a day. Considering that the last missing case occurred 1 week ago, I'm afraid that it is already too late. So I would recommend helping me out and giving me the information I need if you want to have any chance of saving the missing people. If I was to start looking by myself, I'm afraid that it would be completely pointless. You will be better off by just giving up on them." Fujin's words surprised the daimyo and the ninjas in the room, though the Yugakure ninjas were offended by Fujin's words. They knew that getting angry at that moment would be detrimental. The daimyo looked at them and said, "Help him out." Daimyo's words left little room for discussion. Without any delay, everyone gave Fujin the information he needed. They pointed out and marked the locations where they had speculated where the kidnapped people could be held. They also informed Fujin about how they had inspected those locations. Fujin and his team pieced together all the information and clues and tried forming their own plans. While planning, Fujin inquired about the landscapes in each of the locations and marked them on the map. Fujin analyzed. It seems like the rituals are always conducted in a cave, irrespective of whether it was already existing or created with the help of jutsus. Regardless, the mountain has to be natural, or these ninjas would have noticed the anomaly, even if Sankoku's ritual was an exception. They should still conduct such a ritual in a closed-off space to stay hidden. If not for caves, the only other possible location is if they create and hide in an underground base. For now, I will only inspect the suspicious locations that have mountains. If I don't find them, I'll look at the other locations. The cave should be hidden with the help of Fuin Jutsu, so it is no wonder that these guys couldn't find anything. Fujin quickly began planning which route he should take. While he did so, he said, "If you have a picture of Hayden and some of his belongings with his scent on them." Give them to us. He kept looking at the map. The Yuga Kuei ninjas quickly handed a piece of cloth and a small picture to Fujin's teammates. Hyuga Hasso observed the picture properly, while Inyuzu Kashiro and his ninja dog memorized hide and scent. After drawing up a plan, Fujin rolled up the map and left Yuga Kuei in a hurry along with his team. A couple of minutes after they exited the village, 3 shadow clones popped next to Fujin. They dispersed along different paths. Fujin's teammates immediately understood what Fujin was up to. However, they were confused. Yamanaka Ken wondered, why is he so relentless? We have barely rested since we left Konoha. At this rate, we won't be able to fight at our full strength. He wasn't like this during the 2 missions I was with him earlier. The other 2 had the same confusion as well. Fujin could guess his teammates' thoughts. In order to not make them suspicious, he looked at his teammates and said, I'm not sure who our enemy will be or what abilities they will have, but I have a bad feeling. We should capture them before they do whatever they are planning with the kidnapped people. After we find them, be ready to consume a soldier pill if the fight becomes intense, as we won't be resting much until we find them. Fujin's teammates nodded, though Fujin didn't give a proper explanation. They knew that trusting one's instincts was crucial for a ninja. Several times, a ninja would have to head into a mission with little information. Even in their current situation, they were unaware of the reason behind the kidnapping and the identity of the kidnappers. As such, trusting your instincts becomes an important factor. It was the reason why Fujin used such a reason. It saved him from having to explain his urgency. After all, he couldn't say that he was hurrying them just because he wanted to catch the bishop and read his memories before he completed the ceremony and kicked the bucket. The group moved rapidly. So did Fujin's clones. Though Fujin wasn't from the land of hot water, he had taken several dozen missions in this country, most of which entailed hunting down rogue Kiri ninjas and bounty hunters. Apart from the land of fire, this was the country where he was the most active. As such, he knew the area very well. Fujin and his squad began moving directly towards the place where Haiden had done the massacre. As for his clones, they began scanning the decided locations one by one. Within 6 hours, several of the suspicious places were searched. The location where Haiden had killed civilians and fellow ninjas didn't have any clue to track Haiden. Though Shiro picked up some sense, he couldn't use them to track Haiden. His clones didn't have much luck either. Each of them had properly searched 3-4 locations without much success. One of Fujin's clones kept moving in the direction of the Land of Frost. He was only a couple of dozen from the border when he reached a small mountain range that existed there. He thought, I have already looked through 3 locations and haven't found anything. Since I didn't receive any message, the others shouldn't have had any success either. Sigh, I hope I find them in time. He activated his space-time sensing technique. Just like all the previous times, he didn't sense any disturbances in the space-time field, implying that there was no ninja in a 4-5 kilometer radius. The clone moved around for a bit to cover the entire mountain range but still didn't find anything. Finally, he deactivated his technique and activated his chakra field. He began inspecting the mountain range once again. After a couple of minutes, he sensed a location that he couldn't sense. His eyes widened. He immediately deactivated his chakra field and hid himself. He wondered, is this it? But why didn't I sense anything with my space-time sensing technique? Normal seals shouldn't be able to hide themselves from my space-time sensing technique. This means that either the seals here counter space-time techniques, or more likely, there is no one inside whatever is being hidden by the seal. I hope that it is the former. Konoha's library didn't have any seals to stop or block space-time techniques. If this cave does have such seals, then I can use them against Obito. As long as his intangibility is neutralized, killing him wouldn't be that difficult. Fujin's clone was excited by that possibility. However, he turned his focus back to the matter at hand. He analyzed. It wouldn't be strange to have an abandoned base inside this country. It could have been created by them during wartime, or perhaps it could be created by any other major villages during one of the great ninja wars. So I can't be sure that this is done by Jashin. I need to inspect it while taking care to ensure that no one inside the hideout gets suspicious. He created a shadow clone with a very low amount of chakra. The clone immediately transformed into a rabbit and began moving towards the area being blocked by seals that he had detected earlier. The rabbit reached that location in a few minutes. He hid in bushes and observed it. The area looked completely natural. It was a mountain wall and nothing else. The rabbit analyzed. It looks like the entrance to the cave is properly sealed off, making it look completely normal. Now let me see the level of the person who inscribed seals here. The rabbit concentrated chakra in his eyes as he began observing the wall. Soon, several dozen seals appeared in front of him. The rabbit properly analyzed every seal he could see and dispelled itself. The clone immediately received the memories he analyzed. At this level of sealing, whoever did it should be a grand master. More importantly, the style of the seals and symbols is quite similar to the ones in Zankoku's memories. It looks like this is it. The shadow clone wasn't the only one to receive the memories. Fujin and his other clones received the memories as well. Fujin immediately began moving towards the land of frost. As for his two shadow clones, they dispelled themselves, sending memories and chakra back to the main body. The shadow clone that found the base kept hiding there, ensuring that no one escaped. Chapter 447. A suspicious feeling. Within a couple of hours, Fujin and his squad reached the mountain range and appeared where his clone was hiding. On seeing Fujin, the clone dispelled itself. Fujin received his memories. In the last 2 hours, there was no movement into or from the base that his clone had detected. In addition, the mountain range's location was such that no major trading route passed nearby. As such, the clone didn't detect traders or ninjas passing by either. While Fujin was analyzing the memories, his teammates were scanning the area. Shiro couldn't smell any scent while Hiso's eyes didn't pick up anything out of the ordinary. Both looked at Fujin, with odd expressions on their faces, wondering whether Fujin had brought them to the right place. As for Yamanaka Ken, Fujin had instructed him against activating his chakra field. Hiso said, "I don't see anything odd." Shiro added, "Same, I don't smell Haiden or anyone else nearby. Are you sure that they are here?" Fujin replied, "I can't say for sure. Let's check." He began walking towards the spot where his clone had disguised as a rabbit and inspected the seals. His teammates were surprised by the casual response. They followed him. Unlike his clone, Fujin didn't bother hiding his presence much. If his presence lured out the ones hiding inside, he would be glad instead of getting worried. His eyes glowed as he observed the seals. Without the need to hide himself, Fujin could observe in greater detail. He saw a lot more than just the seals on the surface. Even the seals on the inner side of the walls were visible. Fujin raised 2 fingers on his right hand. 4 vacuum blades formed on top of his fingers. They flew and hit the wall in a way that none of the seals were damaged. Fujin wasn't sure whether his targets were inside the cave. As such, he wanted to leave the seals unharmed to study them later, and avoid being left empty-handed on a mission that gave him so many headaches. The 4 vacuum blades cut open a door in the mountain. Fujin's teammates were surprised to see a cave hidden behind the wall. Hyuga Hiso thought in surprise, "Incredible, I didn't detect anything. It must be hidden with seals. Is Fujin a seal moth?" A few seconds after the door was cut open, Shiro smelled a scent that made his expression grim. Despite not sharing his sense of smell, the other 3 noticed it as well and recognized what the stench was. It was the stench of dead bodies rotting. Hiso immediately activated his Byakugan, while Fujin and Ken activated their chakra fields. All 4 immediately had grim expressions. Fujin muttered to himself, "No wonder I couldn't sense any disturbances with my space-time sensing technique. Everyone inside is already dead. Sai, am I too late?" Fujin asked, "What do you see?" Hiso answered, "Dead bodies. More than 300 of them. They are spread in 6 rooms. However, I don't see any clear injuries on their body. We will need to inspect it properly. There is no one alive inside unless they are hiding with the help of seals." Fujin looked at Shiro and asked, "Did you notice anything?" Shiro answered, "I can confirm that Haiden's scent was in this cave. He should have left. However, I can't find any trail of his scent. It looks like he can eliminate traces of his scent." Fujin thought for a bit and instructed, "Send a messenger bird to Yuga Kurei and inform the daimyo. Ask him to deploy ninjas here and take care of the dead bodies." Fujin looked at the cave and said, "Entering inside will be risky as there are a lot of seals inside. I will send my clones to investigate the cave. Shiro, you search for any traces of Haiden on this mountain range that could aid us in tracking him. Hiso and Ken, you 2 inspect the remaining mountain range and check if we missed anything. Also, keep an eye out for any unusual activity or presence." Everyone nodded and got to work. Meanwhile, Fujin created several shadow clones who entered the cave in 2 waves. Fujin analyzed, "Though the ritual is over, it shouldn't have been a long time. If that bishop's body is still inside this cave, then I might still be able to read some of his memories. As long as I can find the location of their secret organization, I can always find more targets to read memories and learn about these rituals." Unfortunately, there are two issues. The first is if the bishop dying isn't something that always happens after a ritual, and the second is if Haydn hid his body. In that case, I'll have to capture Haydn and read his memories. But how do I do that with these three following me everywhere? Sigh, so many complications once again. Couldn't he have just waited for a few weeks before starting the ritual? Why did he have to undergo the ritual exactly at this moment? If it had happened a bit later, I would have gotten what I wanted. If it had happened earlier, I wouldn't have cared much about this. This timing really feels like someone is messing with me, be it intentional or unintentional. The timing of the ritual felt too much of a coincidence for Fujin. As such, he couldn't help but be suspicious. However, he couldn't comprehend how anyone would have known that he would read Senkoku's memories and go after Haydn at that time. While Fujin waited outside the cave, his clones got to work. The first wave of the clones was responsible for studying the seals. They recorded every seal in the cave into various scrolls that Fujin had handed them. In addition, they were also responsible for disabling any traps left among those seals and making the cave harmless to anyone else. The second wave of shadow clones began inspecting the dead bodies. Fujin's main goal was to find the bodies of the bishop and his priests. At the same time, he was also curious about how the people had died during the ritual and the seals on their bodies. In Senkoku's case, the people had died due to the blood being sucked out from their bodies. Fujin was curious about what they had to sacrifice to give Haydn such a broken ability. The first wave of shadow clones progressed slowly but steadily. Though there were some seals and symbols that Fujin didn't recognize, those seals were related to the ritual and didn't have any offensive capabilities. As such, none of his clones were dispelled. Once the pathways were secured, they continued recording the seals, while the clones from the second wave began inspecting the dead bodies. On observing, the clones immediately noticed similarities among the corpses. They analyzed. That's weird. According to the mission details, people of all ages were kidnapped. Still, everyone here is extremely old. There are no signs of any injuries on them. It's almost as if they weren't killed. Instead, they died due to old age. Does that mean the ritual absorbed the life force or lifespan of these people? Would increasing life force by multiple times give the ability to become an immortal like Haydn? Or are there more factors involved? The clones began studying the corpses more carefully. As soon as they touched the corpses, the clones immediately noticed another aspect. They thought, the cells in their body, so weird. The cells in their bodies don't resemble that of someone who died a few days ago. Instead, they have deteriorated to such a stage that it might look like these bodies died several years ago. But why is this? Could it be that a ritual was conducted here a long time ago? No, Shiro said that he smelled Haydn's scent. Not to mention, the number of dead people here is similar to the number of kidnapped people. So, did their cells deteriorate so quickly because their lifespan was sucked? Now that I think about it, Haydn would frequently harm himself, be it to act as a distraction or to activate his killing technique. Despite the damage, he is able to move around freely. This should imply that he is able to heal very quickly. His ability to survive can be divided into two parts. The first is being able to survive attacks that would kill a normal person, such as a spear through his heart. The second is being able to recover from that damage. There is only one way to recover from that damage, that is, cell regeneration. It should be at the same or higher level than Tsunade's mitotic regeneration. The only limit it has is when he is cut into two or more pieces like Asuma and later Shikamaru did, or perhaps he isn't skillful enough to use this in that situation. Regardless, it looks like they not only sucked the life force but also sucked out the cell's ability to regenerate themselves. This is why the cells in these corpses have deteriorated so quickly. My guess is that they will continue deteriorating at a high speed and completely decompose themselves. In a few months, it will become impossible to even identify these people. Fujin's clones who were studying the dead bodies began studying the seals inscribed on the dead bodies and copied them in scrolls. Meanwhile, the remaining clones from the second wave were searching for a body wearing the same outfit as Bishop Ketsuoki. Chapter 448 The Mysterious Factor. While the clones were recording the Juin Jutsu seals on the bodies of the corpses, one shadow clone placed his hand on the head of one of the corpses and inserted some of his yin chakra into his brain. After a couple of minutes, he withdrew his arm and analyzed. As I expected, I can't read the memories. The fast speed of decomposition of their bodies has also made it impossible to read their memories. All their memories have been lost to time. Sigh. I hope that Bishop's case isn't the same. After nearly an hour, Fujin's clones had recorded each and every seal in the large cave. Fujin's teammates, who were kept busy by the miscellaneous tasks he assigned them, had no idea that Fujin was recording all the seals in the cave under the guise of completing the mission. Despite recording all the seals properly, Fujin wasn't very happy. Inside the cave, he had found the bodies of all the kidnapped people. However, he didn't find anyone wearing the outfit that Ketsuoki wore in Sankoku's memories. To make matters worse, in addition to the kidnapped people, there were 32 more dead bodies in the cave, which were cremated long before Fujin's clone found the hideout. Fujin speculated that they were the priests and servants under the bishop. He analyzed with a grim expression on his face. As I thought, someone is indeed messing with me. I can understand not being able to read the memories of the sacrifices due to the nature of the ritual, but what was the need to cremate the followers of the bishop? This completely counters my ability to read memories and learn about the identity and appearance of the bishop, along with what exactly happened during the ritual. Besides, why would they kill the followers of Jashin instead of having them follow Haiden? The situation is completely different from Zankoku. It looks like my only option is to capture Haiden and read his memories to find out more about the bishop, but... A frown formed on Fujin's face again as he thought. But there are no leads on Haiden. How the hell am I supposed to find him in this vast country? Not to mention, he doesn't need to stay in this country. Another obstacle is Akatsuki. I don't know when the Akatsuki will make a move to recruit him. Once they recruit him, I won't be able to deal with him for quite some time. Though I'm confident in dealing with Haiden, Kakuzu is not someone I can defeat for sure right now, even more so when Haiden is cooperating with him. I'll need to wait for some time for my strength to increase considerably, and only then deal with both of them together. Fujin let out a sigh and looked at the cave in front of him. He thought, it looks like there are only two ways now. I can only study the seals and try to study Zankoku's body. I have some confidence in studying the seals, but Sankoku's body is another hopeless prospect. Fortunately, Senkoku's memories were more or less intact. Even if I don't achieve any success in those two methods, I can learn more about this when I get my hands on the Edo Tensei Jutsu, but there is still the interference I am feeling. I should move quickly and secure Ketsuoki's corpse. It would suck big time if someone moves or destroys it. If there is indeed someone interfering, then they might try to attack me when I am holding Ketsuoki's body. That would be a good way to draw out whoever is hiding. Fujin was left stuck once again, despite feeling that he was very close. Fujin just barely missed gaining the secrets of the Jashin ritual. As such, he could only make plans for the future. A long distance away from the mountain range, Fujin was inspecting the Jashin hideout used for ritual. A figure could be in the forests. He was holding a bag and pouring some ashes on the ground. Letting the wind spread it, it was the person Yuga Kurei was searching for. Haiden emptied the contents of his bag and complained, "That motherfucker, he asked me to cremate his body after his death and asked me to scatter his ashes all over the land of frost. First, he hurried the ritual for some reason. Though those Yuga Kurei cowards are incompetent, they still managed to catch us a couple of times. After completing the ritual, he burned the dead bodies of all of his followers and asked me to do the same to his body and even asked me to spread his ashes." He wondered, why did Lord Jashin ask Bishop Shikabin to do that? Of course, Haiden couldn't comprehend the reason. If Fujin were to learn of it, he would easily understand. Haiden cremating Shikabin's body ensured that Fujin wouldn't be able to read his memories. And by spreading his ashes over long distances, all his ashes would be mixed with the earth and become impossible to find even if Fujin read Haiden's mind in the future. As such, Edo Tensei wouldn't work either. However, even this knowledge would force Fujin to wonder a lot. After all, Shikabin began gathering people for the ritual even before Fujin attempted reading Zankoku's memories and having any intentions towards Shikabin and Haiden. Not to mention, Fujin had read Zankoku's memories in absolute secrecy. Unfortunately, Fujin had no way of knowing that his suspicions of someone messing with him were indeed the truth. Unlike Fujin, Haiden didn't bother thinking much about such a complicated matter. He cursed a bit loudly. "Whatever, I just need to spread the word of Jashin. I will kill and sacrifice those bastards to Lord Jashin." Haiden immediately jumped backwards. A few shurikens landed where he was standing. In front of him, 8 ninjas appeared, all staring at him. One of them wondered, who is this guy and why is he shouting about killing us in the middle of nowhere? Haiden frowned on seeing them and asked, "Kumo ninjas, what do you want?" The leader among the 8 Kumo ninjas replied, "That is what I want to ask you. Kill and sacrifice us. Who do you think you are? Since when did rogue Yuga Kurei ninjas become this arrogant?" Haiden watched dumbfounded and thought to himself, "I didn't even sense them. What a coincidence that they were here and heard what I was saying. He suddenly laughed out loudly and exclaimed, Lord Jashin is mighty, he already brought me more sacrifices. Be proud of the fact that you would be the first ones I sacrifice to Lord Jashin. The Kumo ninjas looked at him like he was a moron. Their leader said, we need to meet up with Dari soon and head to the land of hot water. Let's kill this clown and get on our way. We have rested enough. Everyone nodded. In the land of frost, a few kilometers away from their border with the land of hot water, two Kumo squads clashed with Haiden. Back in the land of hot water, Fujin was oblivious to these developments. Fujin's clones kept recording all the seals. It took them around 4 hours to record everything perfectly. At the same time, his remaining clones checked up on all the corpses, confirming that none of their memories could be read. His teammates scanned the mountain range and didn't find anything suspicious. Fujin looked at the cave and wondered whether he should wipe out the seals left in the cave. After some time, he decided, I'll let them be in case I need to refer it at some point in the future. I have already left a flying thunder god marking in the cave. When I master it in the future, I can freely access this cave. Even though doing this could allow other grandmasters to observe this cave as well, it isn't an issue. In fact, it might even be better. After all, I am just one person. Now that I think about it, I should give information about these seals to Hiruzen as well. If others work on it as well, the chances of someone succeeding in making sense of these new seals and symbols would be much higher. If it is someone from Konoha, other than Danzo, then getting my hands on it wouldn't be difficult. Even if it is someone not from Konoha, as long as it is exposed, I can go and hunt that Grandmaster and read his memories. After all, once I master the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, who can stop me from infiltrating and escaping? Another possible aspect can be if the spread of this knowledge makes the Jashinists come out of their cave. That would make my life easier as well. Yeah, I'll do this. I'll give Hiruzen some of the new seals and symbols I discovered in this cave. As for the entire seal formation, I won't give it to him. Making it requires a lot of work. I won't be able to create another copy to give it to him in time. Let him send a squad and take the notes. Fujin immediately began acting on his plan. He created a few more shadow clones to copy some of the new seals and symbols in different scrolls which he would give to Hiruzen. A couple of hours later, the Yugaku Rei ninjas finally arrived. Chapter 449 5 Forces Move 1. The Yugaku Rei forces were led by a familiar face. It was Takashita Tokudi leading a group of 24 Yugaku Rei ninjas. Some of his subordinates were the same ones who had cooperated with Renjuro's squad on an elimination 4 years ago. Tokudi looked at Fujin. Though Fujin and his teammates had made an impact back then, Tokudi hadn't thought much of it. After all, several geniuses appeared every year. However, the ones that made it to the top were very few. Most would either die or not have the dedication to keep training to become a fearsome ninja. Of course, that was until he saw Fujin's bounty poster with an insane bounty, and the speculation of him being the spectral swordsman. It was a name even he wouldn't want to face on the battlefield. When Igawatga updated Fujin's information in the bingo book, Tokudi was left stunned. He never anticipated that the spectral swordsman would be so young and someone with whom he had cooperated earlier. While the ninjas from the major villages weren't too intimidated by the spectral swordsman, the situation was completely opposite for the minor villages neighboring the Land of Fire, where Fujin was highly active. The sheer amount of people he killed during his time in Ambi made them very fearful of him. Despite him not being very active in recent times, Tokudi thought, from a newly promoted Chunin to an elite Chunin in merely 4 years. Thankfully, we aren't on opposite sides. He said politely, Suzuki Fujin, it's good to see you again. Fujin looked at Tokudi. Unknown to Tokudi, Fujin had worked several times with him while he was in Ambu. It is just that Tokudi wasn't aware that it was Fujin. He nodded and said, it is good to see you once again as well. Unfortunately, the occasion isn't a joyous one. On hearing it, the expression on every Yugaku Rei ninja's face became grim. They were informed of the information the Konoha ninjas sent to the daimyo. Among their group were a few ninjas who were offended by Fujin's words in the meeting room, and a few who had inspected this spot earlier and not discovered any hideout. Through his actions, Fujin had proven his words true, making them feel ashamed and guilty. This loss was a significant one for the Land of Hot Water. Losing so many civilians in one blow would cause a lot of chaos and panic in the country. Their economy would suffer as well as trading would slow down, and tourism would come to a halt temporarily. As a result, the country would be in for a hard time for a few months at the very least. Fujin looked at the cave and said, there are many seals in the cave. Fortunately, they don't trigger automatically. You guys can recover the corpses. That said, I'm not sure what the seals do. So, avoid damaging the cave and accidentally triggering any seals. Tokuhi nodded. He had no intention of arguing with Fujin. He instructed his men to collect and store the dead bodies properly. While the Yuga Kurei ninjas were cleaning up, Yamanaka Ken asked Fujin. The mission seems to be over, Captain. Should we stay or return to Konoha? Fujin thought for a few seconds and answered, let's accompany them back to Yuga Kurei. It'll be in our path anyways. Fujin's teammates nodded. Fujin thought, collecting all the bodies and returning will need some time. If Yuga Kurei gets news of Haiden's movements, I'll have an excuse to find and hunt him. Though Fujin knew that the chances of getting what he wanted were very low, he didn't want to give up on it considering that there wasn't much danger in doing so, apart from losing some time. He wouldn't lose anything else. While the Yuga Kurei ninjas were storing the bodies, a new development happened elsewhere. Close to the border between the land of hot water and the land of frost, 8 Kumo ninjas stood. C complained, where are those guys? They were supposed to meet us several hours ago. If we delay any further, then our mission will be a failure. Darui calmed him down and said, relax, they should have a good reason to be late. Besides, we can't guarantee that we would be able to take him down with just the 8 of us. We need a seal master to be able to pin him down and avoid his traps. Without him, our chances of succeeding will drop hard. C said, I know, but if we wait any longer, he might leave and return to Konoha. We had to wait for months for him to leave his village. Fortunately, he left it twice in a row. Who knows how long he will stay holed up in Konoha like a turtle once again. Darui sighed. He knew that time was running out as well. However, he didn't want to take any meaningless risks and waited patiently. Suddenly, C's eyes widened. He said in a serious tone, follow me quickly. C flickered right away. The remaining 7 Kumo ninjas followed him immediately. After flickering a few times, C arrived in front of an injured Kumo ninja. The Kumo ninja was covered in blood and had several injuries on his body. Soon others arrived as well. C immediately began healing the injured ninja, while Darui asked, who attacked you, and where are the rest? The injured ninja was in a state of shock. Though C healed him, his mental state didn't recover. The injured ninja looked at Darui and said, they are dead, all died. He is a monster. Panic and fear could be heard in his voice. His entire body was shivering. The 8 Kumo ninjas were surprised to see his state. Everyone could see his horror. In addition, the fact that 7 Kumo ninjas died to just one person surprised them. After all, none of them were weak. Every one of them was a Junin or a special Junin. Darui asked, who is a monster? The injured Kumo ninja said, he was a rogue ninja from Yuga Kurei. He is Ayamim. Suddenly, the injured Kumo ninja coughed and vomited blood. He clutched his chest as if he was trying to hold his heart. A second later, he lost his life and dropped dead. The Kumo ninjas were all shocked. Darui asked hurriedly, C, what happened? How did he die? C had a grim expression. He was healing the injured ninja when he suddenly collapsed. He answered, I don't know. Though he was injured, his condition wasn't critical. Seeing him hold his heart, I guess he might have suffered a heart attack. We will need to take him back to the village to inspect him. One of the other ninjas said, we can take him back to the village later. But we need to first get them justice. Which bastard dared to kill Kumo ninjas? Since when did Yuga Kurei have such a strong rogue ninja? Samui said, I read some reports from the land of hot water recently. Apparently, one of their ninjas killed 18 other ninjas and several civilians before going rogue. I believe his name was Haiden. It might be him. Darui thought about Samui's information. He asked C, do you detect anyone nearby? C shook his head and replied, my chakra field has been activated for some time. I didn't detect anyone else. Darui said, then our only choice is to trail his steps and find out what exactly happened. Then we can hunt that rogue ninja. Samui asked, but what about our mission? Darui sighed and said, we can't risk taking on Suzuki Fujin without a seal master. It'll make it very difficult to kill him as he is speculated to be a grandmaster. If we fail once, then he will forever be on guard, and Konoha might take some retaliatory measures. Everyone agreed with Darui's reasoning. They stored the dead body properly and began tracing his steps back. A couple of dozen kilometers away from Darui, a burst of loud laughter could be heard in the snow-covered forest. Several diagrams made from blood could be seen on the ground. In addition, there were a few corpses and a lot of blood from the dead ninjas. Haiden thought, I have offered my first sacrifices to Lord Jashin. Even that ninja who managed to run away, I want to know what his expression was when he died even after managing to escape. The thought made Haiden laugh once again. He thought, still this isn't enough, I need to sacrifice more people to Lord Jashin. Haydn grabbed his weapons and continued his aimless journey. Round the same time, a messenger bird reached Tokuhi from Yugaku-rei. His eyes widened on reading the message. Fujin noticed that and asked, "What is it?" Tokuhi informed, "To find the missing people. We had our ninjas spread out all over the country. Some even cooperated with the patrol camps of neighboring countries along our borders. A couple of our ninjas were searching inside the Land of Frost while cooperating with the ninjas of Shimoguk. They found Haydn. He was engaged in a battle with Kumogakurai ninjas and was winning. They left immediately and sent back a message. Chapter 455 Forces Move 2. Fujin was surprised by the information. He wondered, Haydn is in the Land of Frost. Makes sense that he escaped there, but why is he fighting Kumo ninjas? Is that crazy guy trying to sacrifice everyone he meets? He isn't that crazy, right? Tokudi said. I will leave some men here to complete the work here and led the remaining forces to hunt him down. What will you be doing? Fujin acted like he was thinking for a few seconds and answered, well, our mission statement also included hunting him down if we meet him. Give me the location. We will move ahead first. Tokudi nodded and informed Fujin about the location where Haydn and Kumogakurai ninjas fought. Fujin's squad left immediately. A few minutes later, Tokuri also followed them with 3 squads, round the same time. In Shimoguk, 2 squads stood in front of a person. He looked at them and informed them about the fight between Haydn and Kumo. He instructed, considering that the rogue ninja was winning, it is safe to say that Kumogakurai will take some actions to eliminate him. From reports, he seems to have killed many Yugakurai ninjas as well, so they might cooperate with Kumo ninjas to eliminate him. You don't need to fight him. In fact, if you do meet him, escape without fighting. If you meet Kumo or Yugakurai ninjas, feel free to help them out with intelligence. But don't fight for them. Just observe what happens with the rogue ninja and try to ensure the safety of common people if you can without risking your life. The leader of the 2 squads nodded his head. He and the remaining ninjas left Shimoguk and moved towards the location of the fight. They didn't want to get involved, but since the fighting was happening in their country, they had the responsibility of monitoring the battle and ensuring that commoners didn't become needless casualties once again. As a result, the forces from 4 villages, that is, Konohagaka, Kumogakurai, Shimoguk and Yugakurai, began moving to find Haydn in the Land of Frost. Kumogakurai were unaware of the movements of the other forces, while Fujin and Tokuhi were the most clear about which villages would be involved. However, even they weren't aware of another force that was about to get involved. In the Land of Rain, a white-black figure appeared from the ground and looked at Nagato's Dervapath and Konan. Black Setsu said, I have found an interesting person. I believe he will be the perfect partner for Kakuzua's. Nagato and Konan were surprised. Konan asked, you mean you found someone stronger than Kakuzua's? Who is it? White Setsu answered, it is a rogue ninja from Yugakurai. He killed 18 ninjas and went rogue a few weeks ago. We saw him fighting Kumogakurai Junins a few hours ago. He isn't stronger than Kakuzua's, but it looks like his body is immortal. His words surprised the 2. Nagato asked, what do you mean by immortal? Black Setsu answered, he can't be killed by physical injuries. In his fight against Kumo, his heart was stabbed several times. At times, he did it himself, yet he kept moving around and fighting as if nothing was wrong. Elemental jutsus doesn't seem to have much effect on him either. His offensive abilities are very peculiar as well. Setsu informed the 2 about what they had witnessed during the battle. Konan was quite surprised and impressed by Haydn's abilities. Nagato said, all right, let's recruit him. Konan, I will leave this matter to you. Take Kakuzua's and Itachi with you to test and recruit him. Konan nodded. She was about to leave when White Setsu said, you should hurry up. Darui from Kumogakurai was close to where the fight happened, and a few Yugakurai and Shimoguk ninjas spotted him as well. Though I doubt he will die, he could be in trouble if he gets heavily outnumbered. Nagato nodded. His animal path body appeared, weaved hand seals and slammed his palm on the ground. A summoning jutsu, a giant bird with a long and massive beak appeared. Nagato said, you can use it to fly over to the Land of Frost. Konan nodded. She immediately left along with the bird, while picking up Itachi and Kakuzua's on the way. Haydn, the one who was at the center of all this action, was completely clueless about the 5 forces coming for him and their intentions. One of the forces just wanted to observe and limit the destruction. 2 forces wanted revenge and justice and were coming for his head. One just wanted to capture him and read his memories, and the last one wanted to recruit him. Darui's team was the first one to reach the spot as they were the closest to it. They followed the bloody trail left by the dead Kumo ninja while he made his way to them. The expressions of the Kumo ninjas became grim as they saw the gore in front of them. "See, cursed, to kill our ninjas so brazenly, that bastard doesn't want to live," everyone agreed with him. The dead bodies of the Kumo ninjas were too pitiful to watch, their blood was boiling in rage at the sight. They stored the dead bodies properly and began looking for Hayden's trail. Unfortunately, it wasn't easy. They could follow the bloody trail to find the location where Hayden and the Kumo ninjas had clashed. However, trailing Hayden from there onwards wasn't easy. Yet, they had no intention of giving up and continued looking. Round 3 hours later, Fujin's squad reached the place. Shiro looked in surprise and said, "So much blood, it looks like their reports were correct. A huge battle took place here." Fujin nodded. Hyuga Hisuo added, "There is no one nearby, they should have already left. Fortunately, they left a trail behind." Fujin instructed Shiro, "Investigate the scents you can find in this place and see how many tracks you can find. Ken, help him. Hisuo, come with me." Fujin and Hisuo moved and found the bloody trail left behind by the Kumo ninja, who had escaped temporarily. Hisuo pointed out some footprints that were mixed with blood, which Fujin observed and analyzed. "It looks like someone managed to escape, but considering the amount of blood that person lost, there is no way he would survive against Hayden, even if he ran away, and for that very reason, it is unlikely that Hayden would bother chasing him." That said, why did the Kumo ninja escape towards the land of hot water instead of escaping towards the land of lightning? Was any Kumo squad in that direction? Fujin was confused. He could understand there being some Kumo ninjas in the land of frost considering that they were neighbors, but his movement made Fujin a bit suspicious. He and Hisuo returned to where Shiro and Ken were. Shiro noticed Fujin and reported, "Captain, I can sense 17 scents that were lingering here some time ago. One of them belongs to Hayden, but I can't identify the rest of them." Fujin fell into deep thought. He analyzed. 17. It looks like the ninja who escaped went to find reinforcements. He should have succeeded in finding them. That's weird. Why didn't Hayden kill him? Can he not lick the blood that has fallen to the ground, or is there any time limit for how long the blood should have left the target's body? No, that won't be it. After all, Kakashi had taken Kakuzuo's blood and Shikamura took his own sweet time to use it. Could it be that he just disdains licking the blood that has fallen to the ground? Fujin couldn't be sure, but he felt that was the case. He asked, "Can you track where the 17 who were here have gone? Or rather, can you track Hayden?" Shiro nodded and said, "Yes, I can track his scent. The issue is that there are multiple paths. I'm afraid that he left behind some pieces of cloth that were taken by others. As a result, there are 2 tracks." Fujin was surprised once again. He thought, "That's weird. He hid his tracks so well in the land of hot water. No matter what we did, we couldn't track him. How did he become so careless all of a sudden? Regardless, if I assume that the ones who took the pieces of his clothes were reinforcements from Kumo, then they might be trying to hunt him down right now. It will create an opportunity for me. I should move quickly." Chapter 451 Dreams of Invincibility. Fujin asked, "Can you create shadow clones?" Shiro answered, "Just one. I'm not very good at it, also. It exhausts my chakra very rapidly." Fujin nodded and said, "Don't worry, just make one with minimal chakra. Your clone will follow my clone to see where those bloody footprints go. Check whether you can smell some of the scents here on that route." Shiro nodded. He created a shadow clone with 15% of his, while Fujin created one with 1% of his chakra. Both immediately left along the trail left by the bloody footprints. Shiro asked, "Which track should we follow?" He had smelled 2 tracks of Hayden's scent. They could only follow one route, unless they split up and made Shiro and his ninja dog move into 2 separate teams. Fujin didn't intend to split the team so quickly. If the other team found Hayden, then they would be in danger, and he didn't have the ability to teleport as of now. He answered casually, "The one where you can smell a hint of blood." Shiro was surprised by the answer. However, he followed the instruction without any delay, and the 4 moved once again. Fujin thought, Hayden's fighting style involves a lot of blood. His weapons should still be smeared in enemy blood. By comparison, the Kumo ninjas would be careful enough to not make such a silly mistake. Not to mention, knowing Hayden, he should leave a bloody trail in his path. As long as there is no unexpected factor, I should get to him. The only thing I need to worry about is how I can read his memory while these 3 are with me. Fujin was finally hopeful once again. Though they were moving slightly slowly, he felt that they had a high chance of catching Hayden. While they were following the tracks, Hayden met another bunch from Kumo. Dorui and his teammates had finally found Hayden. Despite not being good at smelling, everyone could smell a stench of blood from Haydn. Haydn exclaimed, "Another bunch from Kumo, you are too eager to be sacrificed to Lord Jashin." His words immediately angered the Kumo ninjas. Darui said, "So you admit to killing our ninjas? Good, let me see where you get the courage to do so." He weaved hand seals. Lightning release Black Panther. Daru released Black Lightning, which immediately took the form of a panther and reached Haydn in the blink of an eye. The speed of the jutsu was too fast. Haydn was surprised. He had a relatively easy time killing ninjas from Yuga Kurei. Though he struggled a bit against the Kumo ninjas, it was due to being outnumbered rather than being outmatched. The jutsu hit Haydn and electrocuted him. His screams were heard. A black glow appeared around him due to the black lightning. The Kumo ninjas enjoyed Haydn's screams. However, to the surprise of the Kumo ninjas, Haydn's scream slowly became softer. By the time the attack was over, Haydn was still standing, only his clothes were damaged. Haydn looked at the Kumo ninjas hatefully and was about to curse when he felt someone grab his neck. One of the Kumo ninjas took advantage of Haydn's inattentiveness and snuck up on him. He lifted Haydn by his neck and slammed him into the ground. He looked at Haydn and asked, "Do you know how we were able to track you?" Haydn tried to release his neck from the enemy's grip, but the Kumo ninja was much stronger physically, plus he was just given shock therapy by Dari. The ninja answered his own question. "We lost your trail multiple times. But each time we did, we found several people who you butchered. It was only due to the blood trail you left that we managed to find you." The Kumo group wasn't as skilled as Fujin's squad in terms of tracking. As a result, tracking Haydn was quite difficult for them. However, whenever they lost his trail, they found a few people or families that were slaughtered by Haydn. As a result, they were able to stay on his trail and eventually reached him, having ensured that Haydn would regret killing mindlessly at the last moment of his life. The Kumo ninja grabbed a kunai and stabbed it into Haydn's heart. The Kumo ninjas just watched from a distance. After all, the one attacking was an elite Junin as well. Though they were alert against Haydn due to him having 8 Kumo ninjas, they were still confident in defeating him easily. However, to the surprise of every Kumo ninja present, Haydn dug his nails into his forearm and caused the Kumo ninja to bleed. At the same time, he grabbed his retractable spear and attacked the Kumo ninja while ignoring the kunai stuck in his chest. The Kumo ninja quickly backed away. The remaining Kumo ninjas quickly grabbed their weapons and looked with shocked expressions. Darui asked, "How is he still alive?" The ninja who had just fallen back replied, "I don't know, I'm sure that I stabbed his heart." C said, "Remember the words of our dying comrade." His last words were, "He is IMM." "Do you think he meant to say that he is an immortal?" Darui replied, "It could be. What an annoying opponent. No wonder they didn't survive." While the Kumo ninjas were talking, Haydn got up and removed the kunai from his chest. Immediately, blood poured down from the injury. He licked the blood on his nails. Immediately, several tattoos appeared on his face and body. At the same time, he used his foot to draw the sacrificial diagram on the ground with the blood that had poured down. He looked at the Kumo ninjas and cursed, "You motherfuckers, the ritual has now begun. Let's experience the ultimate pain together." The Kumo ninjas were confused by his words. However, they didn't dare to underestimate him anymore. The 8 ninjas spread out and surrounded Haydn from all sides. A few began weaving hand signs. While the Kumo ninjas were engaged in a battle with Haydn, Fujin's squad was rapidly moving towards the location where Haydn and the Kumo ninjas were fighting. Unfortunately, they were still too far away to be able to detect the fight. Luckily for them, the 2 sets of scents kept merging on the same path again and again. As a result, they were able to confirm that they were moving in the right direction. At the same time, the Akatsuki members led by Konin were flying in rapidly. They had crossed over the vast area of the Land of Fire and had entered the Land of Hot Water thanks to the high speed of the giant drill-pecked bird they were riding. Since none of them were the talkative type, they flew in complete silence. As for the Yuga Kurei and Shimoguk ninjas, they were still some distance away and they didn't have the advanced tracking capabilities of the other 3 forces at the place where Fujin's team was heading. The Kumo squad were by themselves. The only difference was that instead of 8, there were only 6 ninjas. The remaining 2 were lying lifelessly on the ground. One of the ninjas cursed, "That bastard ran away." C said, "How far can he go with that bloody wound?" "Tracking him wouldn't be difficult. But we need to plan first, otherwise we will lose more people." Samui analyzed, "His abilities are very peculiar. I now understand how he was able to kill those 8 ninjas. Stab wounds and jutsus have no long-term effect on him." In addition, he can ensure that one of us suffers the same damage that he does, allowing him to kill that person by stabbing his own heart. Darui continued, however, to do that, he needs to lick the blood of that person. As long as we don't let him injure us, he won't be able to use that curse against us. The best way to fight him would be to fight him from a distance, Samui questioned. But how can we fight him from a distance? So far, the only wound he couldn't shrug off was when you cut his arm off, but if we fight from a distance, we can't do that. He isn't impacted much by our jutsus and moves fast enough to dodge any weapon we throw. C said, one of us would need to fight him at close range. As long as he can avoid getting injured and we keep Haiden away from the circle, we will be able to neutralize him. Darui said, I will do it. Unless he somehow retakes his arm, he won't be able to keep up with me, let alone injure me. I'll cut his legs off and then we can keep attacking him until he dies. If not, we will tie him up and carry him to the village, if we can get his technique. Then the village will benefit a lot. Everyone nodded at Darui's idea. Haiden's technique was just too absurd. If they could gain it, they wouldn't have to worry about much during fights. Even if a small percentage of ninjas in Kumogakure mastered that technique, their village would become invincible in war. Chapter 452. Splitting up. Tempted by Darui's idea, the 6 Kumo ninjas quickly stored the dead bodies of their comrades and prepared themselves to move. Darui looked at everyone and said, we don't know whether he can activate his curse with any blood or only the blood he draws. So if any of you have any cuts, get healed and apply bandages. Not a drop of your blood should flow while fighting against him. Everyone nodded. C quickly healed everyone, and they restarted their chase in a hurry. Despite it not being their mission, everyone knew that the Raikage would be more pleased with Haiden's body rather than eliminating Fujin. Hence, they gave up on their official mission entirely. Some distance away, Haiden was running at a fast speed. He was holding his left arm in his right hand while he was running away. He cursed, what strong bastards, if I didn't catch them by surprise and escaped. That motherfucker would have cut me into several pieces. I will find them later and sacrifice them to Lord Jushin. Though Haiden's arm was cut, his wounds had long stopped bleeding. In fact, he wasn't even feeling any weakness, and he was well aware of the fact that even with his immortality, he wouldn't win against them. So, he was rushing ahead at a rapid speed. This loss also made Haiden slightly wiser. He thought, I now understand why Shitabun took so much effort to ensure that we didn't leave any trail. I need to do the same as well, but it is so much fucking work. Akumo ninjas didn't anticipate that Haiden would move faster than ever and would take efforts to make trailing him more difficult. As such, their new chase would be many times more difficult than their previous chase, despite being much closer, while the Kumo ninjas chased after Haiden. Fujin and Shiro's shadow clones reached the location where Darui's team was when the injured Kumo ninja found them. With Shiro's ability, they easily found blood at the spot where that ninja had died. Shiro's clone inspected the place and said, the same 9 scents are lingering here. But if we continue forward, 1 scent disappears. I guess 8 Kumo ninjas fought with Haiden, and only 1 managed to escape here. He met with another squad of 8 ninjas here, most likely from Kumo, and they went back to find him. That is why there were 17 scents there. Fujin's clone nodded. He had reached the same conclusion. He said, well, it looks like this is a dead end. Still, it clears up the picture. Let's dispel ourselves. Both clones dispelled themselves and sent the memories back to their main bodies. Fujin immediately analyzed the memories. So that's how it was, but Shiro can only smell 8 other scents other than Haiden occasionally. That ninja who escaped should have died as well. I wonder who the Kumo ninjas chasing Haiden are and whether they would be able to stop or stall him for long enough. It'll be great if they can exhaust him enough to force him to take a nap, otherwise this will be a rather long hunt. A little while later, the giant drill-pecked bird reached the location where the first clash between Haiden and Kumo ninjas happened, hovering above the area. They scanned the lands below. Kakuzu said, there is no one here. Tracking them will take a lot of effort considering that it has been a while since they fought here. Conan said, wait for some time. Setsu sent a clone to keep an eye on him while she was speaking. A white Setsu appeared from the ground. He took a few heavy breaths and said, I ran so much. The bird flew lower and landed on the ground in front of him. The white Setsu looked at Conan and said, Haiden has escaped to the east and fought with another Kumo squad led by Dari. I couldn't watch the fight, but Haiden ran away once again while the Kumo ninjas gave chase again. They are moving to the southeast. I tried to track them but their sensor sensed me and they tried looking for me, so you will have to find them on your own. After getting the location from White Setsu, Conan flew once again. Thanks to the speed of the bird, they overtook Fujin's squad and reached the location where Darui and Haiden clashed before the Konoha ninjas. After inspecting, Conan said, "If we keep flying, we won't be able to search for clues. We will move on foot from here onwards. Itachi, check if you can find any tracks." Itachi activated his Sharingan. He immediately found a few tracks, and the trio began moving. Round half an hour later, Fujin's squad reached the location where Haiden and Darui's squad had clashed. Shiro inspected the place, and a frown appeared on his face. He reported, "This place has Haiden's scent and 8 scents that were in the previous place. However, there are 4 new additional scents. One of them smells like a bird. I'm not sure if they are chasing as well or if they were just passing through." His words surprised the team. Fujin asked, "Do you recognize any of their scents?" Shiro answered, "I feel that one scent is a bit familiar. Unfortunately, I can't recall whose scent it is. It must have been a long time since I encountered that person." Fujin didn't find it odd. After all, it was impossible for anyone to remember everyone's scent for years. It was the same as normal people forgetting the faces and names of someone they hadn't met for a long time. Fujin said, "I see, check in which directions all the scents here are traveling. Hiso, check if you can see anything odd around." The two immediately got to work. Fujin and Ken used their chakra fields and space-time sensing technique to see if they could find something. Unfortunately, there wasn't anything for them to detect. Shiro and Hislo quickly found tracks, and the team began moving once again. Shiro said, "Of the 13 people, 10 are moving in this direction. They are Haiden, 6 people from the second group and 3 people from this new group. The one who smells like a bird isn't moving on this route." Fujin was confused. He analyzed, "Which ninja smells like a bird? Is it someone with a bird summoning, or is it a bird summoned by one of those 3 people? Also, Kumo lost 2 more ninjas. It looks like they suffered losses at the hands of Haiden once again. But since they weren't wiped out, this squad should be quite strong. But considering that Haiden escaped, they shouldn't be too strong. At the very least, the Raikage and the 2 Jinhyukaris shouldn't be among those 6. Since they are still chasing, they should be quite strong. I'm guessing there should be 1 or 2 elite Junins in that squad, giving them the confidence to still chase Haiden. Unless, of course, it's them who are escaping with Haiden chasing them. That would be a sight to see, ha ha ha." Fujin couldn't help but wonder who it could be if it was indeed an elite Junin chasing Haiden. Involuntarily, he recalled Darui and his previous squad when he was a Chunin, which met their demise against the Kumo ninjas under Darui's command. The situation changed once again. Haiden was running at the foremost. He was being chased by 6 Kumo ninjas led by Darui. However, they were finding it increasingly difficult to trail him properly. They were followed by the 3 Akatsuki members, who were moving at a very rapid speed. Behind them was Fujin's squad. Despite not being as fast as the Akatsuki members, Fujin's squad still moved at the fastest speed, as they had 4 trails and ninjas who were excellent at tracking. As a result, they never had to waste any time in confirming that they were on the right track. It was an advantage that neither Kumo ninjas nor Akatsuki members had. Elsewhere, the Yuga-Kurei and Shimogok ninjas encountered each other. They began moving together in search of Haiden. Shimogok ninjas weren't interested in fighting Haiden, but they offered their help to find him and to ensure that other Shimogok ninjas didn't fight them. Unfortunately, their squads were left far behind. After a couple of hours, the Kumo ninjas finally stopped. C said, "It's getting increasingly difficult to keep track of him. How is that bastard still running? There are 2 trails in front of us. What do we do?" Darui replied, "Let's split up. We will move in squads of 3. Whoever finds him will send a signal to the other team. Don't fight him recklessly. Just keep him at bay and don't lose sight of him until the other squad meets up." The Kumo ninjas nodded. They split into 2 squads and began moving ahead. When Akatsuki reached the same location, they fell into a dilemma as well. Itachi said, "There are 3 different tracks ahead of us. It is difficult to say which one is Haiden." Conan thought for a bit and said, "Let's split up." She created a few butterflies made of paper which flew and landed on Itachi and Kakuzua's shoulders and said, "I will use the butterflies to communicate if any of us find him. Let's move quickly." The 3 of them split up and began moving rapidly. Though Conan and Kakuzua's weren't as good as Itachi at tracking, they were still quite good at it. Chapter 453 Heavenly Luck. A few minutes later, Fujin's team reached the same location. For the first time, their team stopped. Shiro inspected the scents and said, "They have split into 3 groups and are moving along 3 paths." Hisao nodded and agreed with his observation. Fujin asked, "Which path did Haiden take?" Shiro pointed in one direction and said, "He is moving along this path." Only one other person is moving in this direction. He is from the last group. Fujin instructed, let's keep following him. The Konoha ninjas continued moving. Fujin didn't particularly care about the Kumo ninjas or the other group. He only wanted Haiden. Unfortunately, as everyone split up, he wasn't sure of how he could get Haiden alone and read up his memories. He calculated, I was initially planning to use the Kumo group to split our group and catch Haiden alone. I could knock him out and read his memories as much as I wanted and let him go, but what do I do now? Fujin thought for a while and realized, there is only one way. I have to let Haiden kill all three of them, or perhaps do it myself while they are fighting him. However, in that case, I can't let Haiden go. I'll have to capture and seal him. He'll be my test subject to experiment on. But, is there any value to doing this? While Fujin didn't want to kill innocent people, he wasn't opposed to it if he had a lot to gain. If success was guaranteed, Fujin would have done it. However, the chances of success were just too low. Over a day had passed from the moment Fujin found the cave used for ritual. The ritual itself most probably took place a few days before Fujin found the cave. Even if the dead bishop's body wasn't burned like his subordinates, the chances of his memory staying intact were almost nil. The longer the chase went on, the lesser Fujin's hopes were. To make matters worse, not only was Fujin not guaranteed any benefits. On the contrary, he would suffer two disadvantages. For starters, Haiden wouldn't be able to join Akatsuki in the future. As a result, the internal structure of Akatsuki would change. Their movements in the future could change as well. Secondly, this matter would cast a lot of suspicions on Fujin. There was no need for him to volunteer to hunt Haiden. His job was done when he found the missing people. If he were to lose all his subordinates, be unable to recover their bodies and allow their killer to escape, Hiruzen would easily suspect that there was something fishy. Even though Fujin would not leave any proof behind, he would be foolish to think that Hiruzen wouldn't get suspicious and raise his guard against Fujin. Considering his future plans, Fujin didn't want to be under constant watch by Hiruzen, considering the advantages and disadvantages. Fujin decided, it's not worth it. The only way I can get what I want is if Haiden preserved that bishop's body or if that bishop is alive and Haiden knows where he is. Both are very unlikely. Despite doing all I can, I have already failed in achieving any of my goals for this hunt. It'll be better to let him live for now. I'll capture him in the future and have Tsunade study his body. Even if I raise my medical knowledge and recruit someone who is damn good at it, it won't be anywhere comparable to what Tsunade can do, not to mention Akatsuki's movements will stay more or less the same as I remember. Fujin sighed internally. He muttered to himself, chasing Haiden here was a mistake. Now how do I convince them to stop looking and turn around? Since Fujin didn't see much hope in being able to read the bishop's memories, the entire chase seemed pointless to him. He no longer wanted to capture Haiden. After all, if he captured Haiden now and brought him to Konoha, Hiruzen would most likely ask Danzo to experiment on Haiden. Though Fujin no longer considered Danzo as a great threat, he had no intention of underestimating Danzo and giving him the means to strengthen himself. Unfortunately for Fujin, he was already very deep into this mission. Calling it off suddenly without a good explanation would look suspicious as well. He moved along his squad while thinking about how to back off from the mission. As they moved, Fujin occasionally used his space-time sensing technique. At one such instance, he sensed a disturbance. He looked in front of him and thought, there is someone around 4 kilometers in front of me. Who is it? Is it Haiden? Just when Fujin gave up hope, he sensed someone. Fujin was generally a very calm person. This mission was one of the rare times where he had lost his cool several times and become very frustrated. Once again, Fujin's anger flared. He cursed internally. This bastard, I have been hunting him for so long and he doesn't show himself. Finally, when I give up, he presents himself to me. I hope that damned bishop is alive. Otherwise, I will skin this bastard alive. The last few days, Fujin's mind had experienced an emotional roller coaster. None of his plans went as he wanted. It was as if the entire world wanted to stop him from succeeding. As a result, he was extremely frustrated and wanted to take it out on someone. Though he didn't want to capture Haiden anymore, he doubted whether he'd be able to control himself. He decided, I don't want to take his body back to the village now. Hiruzen will probably give it to Danzo. I don't want that old bastard to get some sort of power-up. I will just pummel him here and cut his body into pieces. Akatsuki can fix him up if and when they find him. I'll mark his body just in case they don't and someone else gets to him. Fujin's team continued moving. The one in front of them was moving slower than their group. When the distance was reduced to 3 kilometers, Fujin activated his chakra field and tried to sense his chakra signature. His eyes suddenly widened in shock, though Fujin could detect disturbances with his space-time sensing technique. He couldn't detect who caused the disturbances. As a result, he had to depend on his normal sensing ability to identify who it was. Of course, just like Shiro's sense of smell, it wasn't practical to remember everyone's chakra signature. However, the chakra signature Fujin sensed was something he could never forget. Fujin's shock soon changed into excitement. He thought, "Fucking Kakuzu is excellent. I'll run into him and begin fighting him. It'll be the best reason to stop chasing Hayden and retreat back to Konoha." Fujin immediately made plans. However, he wondered, that said, what is he doing here? Is he just hunting some bounty, or is he one of the 3 from that last group? If so, does that mean that 3 Akatsuki members are here and are chasing after Hayden to recruit him? Fujin was surprised by how quickly the Akatsuki moved. He quickly put together all his information and speculated. Setsu should have seen Hayden's fight with Kumo ninjas. Only that would explain such quick movement. After all, 3 villages are hunting Hayden. If they are slow, even if he is immortal, he'll be captured. Shiro stated that he smelled a familiar scent. I guess that's Itachi. Itachi has a bird summon as well, or it could be Nagato's bird summon. If they used it to travel, it all makes sense now. Still, how lucky is that bastard? I hunted him so much and he managed to avoid me each time. In fact, he is probably not even aware of the fact that I'm chasing him. Fujin couldn't help but wonder if Jashin's ritual improved the luck of an individual. It was difficult to explain Hayden's incredible luck otherwise, despite being stronger, faster and having better assistance. Fujin lost to Hayden, merely due to Hayden's luck. He found the entire ordeal utterly ridiculous. He shook his head and stopped thinking about it. He said, "Prepare yourselves, I can sense a strong chakra signature 7 kilometers ahead. Hisao, check whether it is Hayden or someone else." The entire team became alert at once. They had been moving around for a long time without finding any enemy to fight. As such, all of them were exhausted and had gotten slightly lethargic. They were aware of that fact. Hence, with Fujin's warning, all of them prepared themselves. They didn't want to be caught off guard when they finally faced an enemy. Kakuzu turned around and looked behind him. He wondered, there is someone chasing me from behind, or is it a squad just passing through the area? Or did I somehow overtake that ninja called Hayden? Or were there more people chasing him? But how are they able to track so quickly? Kakuzu could feel the chakra field moving rapidly, implying that whoever was behind him was coming rapidly. He stood his ground and muttered, "Whoever it is, I hope that they have a good bounty." Chapter 454. Testing each other. The Konoha ninjas got closer. Hisao activated his Byakugan. He said, "There is one person in front of us, round 1 5 km ahead. He isn't moving, but he isn't hiding either." Suddenly Hisao's eyes widened. A look of shock appeared on his face. He said, "His body is very weird. It is as if there are multiple sources of chakra on his body." Fujin acted as if he was surprised and said, "Be careful. I recall fighting one such person before. He was very strong. If I say retreat, do so without any word or hesitation." Fujin's teammates were surprised. However, hearing the seriousness in his voice, no one dared to oppose him. They continued moving forward. At one point, Shiro confirmed Fujin's suspicions by saying, "I can smell him. He is one of the 3 from the last group." Fujin nodded in response. A few seconds later, they appeared in front of Kakuzu, who was waiting to see who was pursuing him. His eyes widened momentarily on seeing Fujin. So did Fujin's eyes. However, unlike Kakuzu's, he was just acting. Kakuzu said, "The spectral swordsman from the hidden leaf. I didn't expect to see you here." It hadn't been a long time since Fujin cut down Juzo. As a result, Fujin was still very fresh in the minds of Akatsuki members. That was especially the case with Kakuzu's, who was very tempted by the bounty on Fujin's head. Fujin replied, "Kakuzu's, a rogue ninja from Takigonka. What are you doing here?" As he spoke, Fujin's eyes landed on a couple of paper butterflies on Kakuzu's shoulders. He immediately realized, paper butterflies? That should be Konan. Itachi, Konan and Kakuzu's. What a weird team structure. Oh well, as long as it isn't Obito or Nagato, I don't care. I'll run as soon as I sense Konan or Itachi. From the words exchanged, Fujin's teammates immediately understood that Fujin knew the opponent. At the same time, they took a second look at Fujin. They wondered whether Fujin would accept the title. Though the majority of Junins in Konoha believed that Fujin was the spectral swordsman, no one had heard him admitting it openly. However, they would be left disappointed as Fujin neither accepted nor rejected the title. Kakuzu's chuckled and asked, "Do I need to inform Konoha about my whereabouts?" Fujin didn't particularly care about his sarcasm and directly said, "Seeing the route you are taking, it looks like you were chasing after Haiden as well. I wonder what Akatsuki has to do with that rogue ninja." Kakuzu replied, "You should be more concerned about yourself. 50 million ryo. Your bounty is very tempting." Kakuzu prepared himself for a clash. Fujin's teammates quickly grabbed their weapons, sensing the change in his temperament. However, before the battle could begin, Fujin said, "You guys aren't his match. This mission ends here. Leave and report the mission to Yuga Kurei, and then retreat back to Konoha. I'll hold him back and directly return to the village." Fujin's words surprised them. However, remembering his previous warnings, all of them retreated in a flash, leaving Fujin and Kakuzu alone in the snowy forest. Kakuzu was surprised by the sudden development. He said, "That's rather courageous of you. I never imagined that the boy who escaped on seeing me would have the courage to face me in a battle so soon." Fujin chuckled and responded, "That's surprising. I didn't think you'd remember me. Where is Kaminari? I wanted to have a rematch with him." Kakuzu replied, "You did make quite an impact. Unfortunately, Kaminari has long been dead." Fujin replied, "That's a shame. Anyway, are you sure you want to fight me? If we both fight, Haiden will manage to escape." Kakuzu said, "As I said, you should worry about yourself. Enough chit-chat. You subordinates have gone far enough." Fujin was merely chatting to waste some time. While he was confident in holding Kakuzu's back, he had no confidence in ensuring the safety of his subordinates if a second Akatsuki member arrived. On the other hand, Kakuzu expected a tough fight. He wanted to be sure that Fujin's subordinates left instead of hiding and sneak attacking him while he was in combat. Though they were much weaker than him, the clans in Konoha were famous for having peculiar jutsus that could turn the battle in an instant. As soon as he was done speaking, Kakuzu's fist hardened. He suddenly appeared in front of Fujin and punched towards his face. A sword appeared in Fujin's hand. As he slashed at the incoming fist, wind chakra began flowing along the blade. The sword and the fist clashed. To Fujin's surprise, his sword wasn't able to put a scratch in Kakuzu's fist. Fujin thought, "Damn, how much did he practice the Iron Skin Jutsu to raise it to such an insane level? This is the first time I have failed to even scratch with my sword." Fujin had fought Kitsuchi and Roshi earlier. Kitsuchi could use the Iron Skin Jutsu as well, whereas Roshi used a lava armor. However, neither of them could block his swords without taking any damage. It was the first time his sword was completely blocked when he was using chakra flow. Kakuzu followed up with a flurry of punches. Fujin used his sword to block some and his left palm to block the rest as he retreated continuously. A deep frown could be seen on his face as he struggled to defend against Kakuzu's onslaught. In terms of speed and strength, Kakuzu appeared to be slightly superior to Fujin, and since Fujin's blade couldn't hurt him, Fujin fell into a disadvantageous position. Kakuzu had complete momentum. Fujin was struggling to keep up. Eventually, a few punches made it through Fujin's defenses. Fortunately, he was able to barely dodge them and avoided getting pummeled. Suddenly, Kakuzu stopped attacking and jumped behind, puzzling Fujin. Kakuzu looked at the spots on his body that Fujin had touched while defending himself. He looked at Fujin and said, "It looks like the information was right. You're a grandmaster at Fiin Jutsu, and a pretty good one as well. Even I wouldn't have been able to notice them if I wasn't anticipating them. No wonder Juzo died to you. His death wasn't unjustified." The main reason why Kakuzu attacked Fujin with Tai Jutsu was because he wanted to see whether Fujin could apply seals, as Setsu had speculated. He had intentionally given Fujin an opening, and as he expected, Fujin took the bait. Fujin's eyes widened. This time it wasn't an act. Every time he touched Kakuzu's body, he applied a seal. Kakuzu's fists and arms had several explosion seals and self-cursing seals inscribed on them. To keep stacking on the seals, Fujin even acted like he was struggling to keep up with Kakuzu's. In an instant, Fujin activated every single one of those seals. However, Kakuzu's was faster. He released chakra from his body and eliminated every single seal on his body with perfect accuracy. Fujin cursed internally. This old fossil, he is an expert at Fuin Jutsu as well. It shouldn't be a surprise considering how long he has lived or what state his body is in. Oh well, since I had already exposed this against Juzo, I wasn't expecting this to work against any other Akatsuki member anyway. Fujin had already exposed his mastery with Fuin Jutsu against Juzo. As such, he didn't expect to trap any other Akatsuki member as easily as Juzo. It was only because Kakuzu's gave him the opening that he decided to use them and put up an act. Fujin immediately riled up his chakra and shot a dozen vacuum bullets at Kakuzu's. Since he couldn't trap Kakuzu's with seals, he didn't need to put up any act. Kakuzu's immediately got out of the way. A few bullets grazed past his cloak, causing it to tear in various spots. Fujin flickered and slashed his sword at Kakuzu's as if he wanted to cut him into two halves. Kakuzu's raised his arm and hardened it. The sword hit his arm and was stopped as Kakuzu's expected. This time, he was neither slower nor weaker than Kakuzu's. Both were equal. Not wanting to allow Fujin to take the momentum, Kakuzu's counterattacked instantly with his other fist and tried punching Fujin. Fujin's left palm was already moving to block the incoming fist. However, Kakuzu's felt something odd. Instead of blocking normally, the wind was flowing in a peculiar manner at Fujin's fingertips. Kakuzu's eyes widened in shock as he understood what was happening. He immediately moved backwards while hardening his entire body. However, Fujin had no intention of letting him off that easily. Though Fujin didn't expect to kill Kakuzu's and was neither interested in doing so, he would be terribly disappointed in himself if he didn't cause Kakuzu's to lose any hearts. Chapter 455 Never-ending hidden cards. While Kakuzu's and Fujin had engaged in a fight, two more face-offs were happening in the snowy forests of the Land of Frost. Darui looked at the person in front of him. His expression was very serious. He muttered, "Uchiha Itachi. Why were you chasing after us?" Darui's subordinates were tense as well. Though they were confident in Darui's strength, Itachi was someone who massacred the entire Uchiha clan. They didn't dare to underestimate him. They prepared themselves for a life and death battle. Elsewhere, the Kumo team led by C and Samui encountered Konan. Though they weren't aware of who she was, C was able to sense her vast chakra reserves. As a result, they were in a tense situation as well. Suddenly, Konan sensed something and looked in the direction where Kakuzu's and Fujin were fighting. She thought, "It looks like Kakuzu's is fighting someone. My butterflies were destroyed." Konan took a look at the Kumo ninja once again before leaving the battlefield. C asked, "Should we chase her?" Samui suggested, "We don't know who she is, though she is strong. Capturing Haiden is more critical right now." C and the other ninja nodded. They continued their trail. Elsewhere, Itachi received a message from the paper butterfly. He too left and began moving towards where Fujin and Kakuzu's were. Darui's team breathed a sigh of relief. They pondered for a few seconds and took the same decision as their other team. While Kakuzu's was retreating backwards, 5 vacuum bullets formed at Fujin's fingertips and shot at Kakuzu's at blinding speed at the same time that he moved backwards. He twisted his body at weird angles to be able to dodge them. However, the small distance meant that he couldn't dodge them entirely. 3 vacuum bullets hit his hardened body and pierced through it. In addition, one of the 2 bullets he dodged destroyed the paper butterflies on his shoulders. Despite hitting Kakuzu's, there was no happiness in Fujin's expression. None of the bullets managed to hit his heart. Unfortunately for Kakuzu's, it wasn't the end of the attack. Fujin could launch 4 waves of attack with his vacuum Gatling jutsu by now, despite Kakuzu's incredible speed. Fujin chased after him and kept attacking. In the second wave, 2 more pierced through Kakuzu's body. In the third wave, 4 bullets pierced through his body. And in the last wave, though Kakuzu's managed to dodge 4, the last one was heading straight towards one of his hearts. Fujin's eyes glowed as he watched in anticipation. In terms of strength, Kakuzu's was extremely strong. He was only below the likes of Hiruzen, Onoki and A, even though most weren't aware of Kakuzu's. According to Fujin, to be able to kill him once would be an even greater achievement than killing Juzo. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be that easy. To Fujin's shock, Kakuzu's heart moved inside his body. The bullet passed through his body but barely missed the heart. All 5 of Kakuzu's hearts were still intact, despite him being hit by 10 vacuum bullets at a close range. The movement of Kakuzu's heart surprised Fujin for a moment. However, on second thought, he didn't find it odd. After all, the heart could leave Kakuzu's body and function independently, even though Fujin's vacuum bullets had the ability to suck the items that were close to its path. It wasn't very effective against Kakuzu's, as the only things that got sucked were the dense threads inside his body. To make matters worse, the damaged threads immediately attached to other threads, ensuring that Kakuzu's didn't suffer much damage and was able to fight at his full strength. Fujin sighed internally and thought, "As I guessed, I can't kill a strong rank S ninja this easily." Seeing no new bullets forming at the tip of Fujin's fingers, Kakuzuas was relieved. He looked at Fujin and thought, what a dangerous brat. If I had been slightly slower to react, he could have destroyed all 5 of my hearts with that unexpected attack. Since Fujin couldn't spam vacuum bullets, he moved faster and swung his sword at Kakuzuas once again. Once again, Kakuzuas hardened his arm and raised it to block Fujin's sword, confusing Fujin, who wondered, isn't he afraid of falling to the same attack once again? Of course, Kakuzuas wasn't a fool. When Fujin's sword neared, several threads appeared from Kakuzuas' body and tore through whatever was remaining of his cloak. He had no intention of falling to the same tactic. Instead, it was his turn to surprise Fujin. The threads moved rapidly towards Fujin's heart. Unfortunately for Kakuzuas, Fujin showed no interest in those threads. Kakuzuas' eyes widened in shock, and he immediately looked upwards. Instead of being stopped, Fujin's sword cut straight through Kakuzuas' hardened arm. He tried moving, but the sword hit his left shoulder and began cleaving through his body. Even though Kakuzuas had hardened his entire body, it couldn't put up any resistance against Fujin's sword. It was as if Fujin was merely swinging his blade through the air. Kakuzuas immediately flickered to his right. However, he was still too slow. Fujin's blade cleaved through one of Kakuzuas' hearts, cutting it into 2 halves. Not only that, Fujin's sword had cut his body. Kakuzuas' left chest, shoulder and arm were cut off from his body. Kakuzuas' remaining body had moved to the right due to him flickering before the sword had cut through his body. He fell to the ground and rolled for several dozen meters before stopping. He lay there as if he was a corpse. Lying on the ground, Kakuzuas was in shock. He had lost one of his heart, one of his arms was cut off from the forearm, and the other arm was completely cleaved from his body. Though they weren't a major loss for Kakuzuas, he couldn't control them as those parts didn't have a heart to allow him to control them. He thought, Azetsu's information is incomplete. His wind vacuum technique is far more dangerous than his Fian Jutsu. He applied a layer of vacuum to his sword. That is why I couldn't block him like before. To make matters worse, he made me feel confident in being able to defend his blade, and hence forced me to make this mistake. With his experience, Kakuzuas immediately understood what his mistake was. At the same time, he looked at Fujin in a whole new light. Though Fujin wasn't stronger than him in any way, he kept way too many cards hidden. Juzo fell to his Fuin Jutsu, which no one knew of despite Fujin having such a high level of mastery. On the other hand, Kakuzuas almost fell prey to a completely new style of using the wind vacuum technique. If he had just one heart, he would have died. That said, if he just had one heart, he wouldn't have fought Fujin in such a reckless manner. He kept lying, hoping that Fujin would lower his guard down and approach him. Fujin naturally wouldn't believe that he was dead. He thought, this old geezer is good at hiding his chakra. Even though he still has 4 hearts, it feels like he is completely dead. I can't sense any chakra from him. Still, I was only able to destroy 1 heart after exposing Vacuum Slash and Vacuum Gatling. And now that I have exposed them, it will be very difficult to catch him off guard with them again. Fujin was very careful while exposing his hidden cards. He would generally avoid exposing them, even if it meant he would have to retreat if he didn't have any benefits to be gained. That is why he didn't use his new collections of vacuum jutsus against Juzo, despite knowing that he could gain a huge advantage in the battle. However, since then, Fujin had made rapid progress in learning the Flying Thunder God Jutsu. It was only a matter of time before he completely mastered it. In addition, he was also learning the 8 inner gates technique. Since he would have those techniques as his hidden cards in the future, Fujin didn't mind exposing some of the vacuum jutsus he created. Not to mention, against someone like Kakuzuas, he would struggle a lot and could be at risk if he restricted himself to using the same techniques that he did against Juzo. After all, he was far away from Konoha, and Kakuzuas had the backup of 2 strong rank S ninjas. Fujin couldn't afford to get injured at that place. Since Kakuzuas was playing possum, Fujin decided to take his time. He created 2 shadow clones and immediately riled his chakra. He shot vacuum cannon at Kakuzuas' body, while his clones followed up with the infinite breakthrough jutsu and the searing migraine jutsu. The 2 jutsus merged seamlessly and moved towards Kakuzuas, who was still playing dead. Chapter 456 Stand Still. Kakuzuas, who was lying pretending to be dead, was dumbfounded. It was a common practice in the ninja world to collect the dead bodies of enemy ninjas instead of destroying them. After all, the dead body of a strong ninja was a treasure trove. It contained a lot of information. It was even more true in the case of Konoha ninjas, due to the Yamanaka clan's ability to read memories. Hence, Kakuzuas never expected that Fujin would try to destroy his dead body. He immediately jumped up. The vacuum cannon hit where he was lying and created a canal in the ground as it moved. Of course, that wasn't the end of Kakuzuha's trouble. He quickly hardened his body before he was hit by the fire-wind combination jutsu. He wondered, is there something wrong with his head? Or does he have information about my abilities? Did Konoha find out so much about me after that small clash with Renjuro? Kakuzuha couldn't be sure. Unfortunately, he didn't have the time to ponder about it deeply. Even though Kakuzuha managed to barely protect himself in time, it wasn't enough to completely stop the combination attack. The high speed and razor-sharp winds combined with hot flames forced Kakuzuha backwards. The Akatsuki cloak on his body was blown away, several burns and a few cuts appeared on his body. Fortunately, he could endure the pain. Unfortunately, he didn't dare to use any defensive jutsus to help himself and instead focused entirely on the incoming attack. Immediately, he moved within the firestorm. A few vacuum bullets pierced through the space he was standing at earlier. Outside the firestorm, Fujin sighed and thought. He dodged them so easily. Vacuum bullets have no chance of killing a strong ninja unless I catch him completely by surprise. I need a large-scale vacuum jutsu. He wouldn't have had much chance of dodging while playing possum if I had it. But how do I create one? Though Fujin had created an array of wind vacuum jutsus, he had failed to create one that had a wide range. The vacuum core would always collapse when he tried to do so. Though he hadn't practiced vacuum jutsus much in recent times, he did keep thinking about solving this issue. Unfortunately, he hadn't had much luck. As he fell back, a large number of threads began poking out of Kakuzuha's body. They replaced his missing arms and the left side of his body. Two masks, the fire mask and the wind mask, appeared next to his head. Another mask, the lightning mask, appeared on his chest. In an instant, the fire and wind masks began preparing their jutsus. Wind release pressure damage jutsu, fire release searing migraine jutsu in order to stop the combination jutsu. Kakuzuha decided to counterattack with a similar combination jutsu. Normally, the two jutsus would have been equally matched. However, Fujin's jutsu had already been active for some time. As a result, Kakuzuha's jutsu managed to overpower what was remaining of Fujin's jutsu, and his jutsu moved through the firestorm Fujin had started. Fujin saw the incoming attack and shot a few vacuum bullets before flickering to the side. The vacuum bullets had no chance of stopping the incoming attack. They were only meant to annoy Kakuzuha, who was standing on the other side of the firestorm. He dodged the incoming vacuum bullets as Fujin predicted. However, Fujin had achieved his goal. The vacuum bullets once again forced Kakuzuha to be on high alert at all times and kept up the pressure Fujin had built up. With no opposition, the fire-wind combination jutsu moved through the snow-covered forest. Every tree in its path was set on fire. The snow on the ground began melting as well. In fact, even the remains of Kakuzuha's arms were burnt to a crisp by the firestorm. After traveling a few hundred meters, the combination jutsu finally died down. As for the target of the jutsu, he flickered a few times to completely avoid the jutsu and snuck behind Kakuzuha's. Kakuzuha quickly turned around to face him and thought, his fighting style is as relentless as the intel said. Akatsuki had researched Fujin and the spectral swordsman after Juzo's death. According to their intel, Fujin's method of fighting was being extremely relentless and peppering the enemy with jutsus that consumed less chakra but had high speed and high penetrative power continuously. His enemy has to fail to dodge just once and the battle would be over. Unfortunately for Fujin, Akatsuki had several individuals who didn't have a normal body. As a result, fighting with his usual fighting style was very restrictive for Fujin. On seeing Kakuzuha's form, Fujin wondered, is this his most powerful form? After all, he used it against Kakashi when he had lost 2 of his hearts. Seeing the lightning mask on his chest, I guess his current level is stronger than what he was against Naruto. I wonder how strong he'd be if he had the 5th heart as well. Fujin quickly moved closer to cut him with his sword once again. However, Kakuzuha had no intention of engaging in close-range combat with Fujin after getting hurt twice. The wind mask shot air bullets, the fire mask shot small fireballs, and the lightning mask shot a few lightning bolts to keep Fujin far away. At the same time, threads extended from Kakuzuha's body to make it very difficult for Fujin to engage in close combat. The barrage of attacks forced Fujin backwards as he dodged. A few threads drilled out from the ground to trap Fujin. However, he flickered far away as soon as he felt something drilling through the ground. He concentrated his wind chakra into his sword and swung it horizontally. A massive sword slash accompanied by several sharp winds flew towards Kakuzuha's. However, Kakuzuha's once again resorted to the fire-wind combination jutsu. forcing Fujin to escape once again. After dodging, Fujin flickered a few times to approach Kakuzuha's from another direction but was stopped again. The masks fired a few more shots as Kakuzuha's asked, "You are good, how did you detect that I wasn't dead?" Kakuzuha's didn't get any response from Fujin, though Kakuzuha's was the one at a disadvantage. Fujin didn't dare to underestimate him. Every one of the elemental attacks could hurt him considerably, and the threads were constantly trying to sneak up on him through the ground. He had to maintain full attention on the battle to ensure that Kakuzuha's didn't gain momentum once again. The two continued fighting. With his sword and blades of wind jutsu, Kakuzuha's threads weren't of any danger to him as long as he detected them. Whenever they got too close, Fujin would cut them off, however, due to the elemental bombardment along with attacks from the threads. Fujin was unable to get close to Kakuzuha's. His vacuum bullets and other attacks didn't pose much of a threat to Kakuzuha's as he had plenty of time to dodge them. To pressure Kakuzuha's, Fujin used his shadow and wind clones to bombard him with more vacuum bullets from various angles. It put Kakuzuha's under a lot of pressure. But even under such pressure, not a single vacuum jutsu hit Kakuzuha's. The battle entered a standstill with Kakuzuha successfully keeping Fujin at mid-range. Though he couldn't harm Fujin, Fujin was unable to harm him either. He also used fire-wind combination jutsu several times, but Fujin dodged each time without counterattacking. The main reason for not counterattacking with large-scale jutsus was that this battle was one of the few ones where Fujin didn't have the advantage in terms of chakra reserves. Kakuzuha's was considerably superior to Fujin in this aspect. Since Fujin didn't see any way to overpower Kakuzuha's combination jutsu, he didn't bother wasting his chakra, as there wasn't much point in merely stopping it. As a result, several firestorms moved unrestricted through the snowy forests. A large area was burned down. If not for the snow, multiple forest fires would have started spreading throughout the land of frost. Fujin sighed internally after being unsuccessful in closing the distance for the nth time. He thought, there is no end to this. We will just have to keep fighting until one of us runs out of chakra. Of course, no one is stupid enough to reach that stage. Worse, he is getting used to my fighting style, even if I somehow make him run low on chakra and be unwilling to use so many elemental attacks. I doubt I'll be able to injure him as well as I did earlier. I will need to use my wind domain if I want to injure him now. Unfortunately, my wind domain isn't strong enough. Suddenly, Fujin sensed a disturbance. During the fight, he had kept his space-time sensing technique activated at all times. Someone had entered into it. Chapter 457 Fooling Kakuzuha's. Fujin thought, someone is heading towards here. Is it Itachi or Conan or someone else? Unfortunately, Fujin couldn't sense who it was as his space-time sensing technique didn't allow them to identify chakra signatures. A moment later, he sensed another disturbance. A few seconds later, both of those entities entered his chakra field. However, a peculiar expression appeared on Fujin's face. He muttered to himself, "What's the use of being able to identify chakra signatures if my chakra field can't even detect that a couple of ninjas have entered it?" Fujin's chakra field failed to pick up either of the chakra signatures. If not for the space-time sensing technique, he would have been in the dark about their arrival. Being able to hide themselves so well left little doubt of their identities. Fujin looked at Kakuzuha's and said, "You are quite stronger than what we thought. We will have to re-evaluate your threat." Kakuzuha's was confused by Fujin's words. Fujin hadn't spoken a word since they started fighting. He couldn't help but wonder why he talked all of a sudden. Suddenly, 4 shadow clones popped next to Fujin. A breeze could be seen flowing around Fujin. He disappeared within that breeze. Kakuzuha's immediately recognized. Wind instantaneous body jutsu. Why did he escape when he had the upper hand? Though the fight was a stalemate for a long time, Fujin held the initiative due to his vacuum jutsus. Of course, that little advantage wasn't much of a threat for Kakuzuha's. He believed that he would gain the upper hand if the fight continued for a long time. Breeze began flowing around him as well. However, Fujin's clones immediately attacked him, interrupting his attempt to use the same jutsu to chase after Fujin. One of the clones said, "Give it up, you can't chase after me anymore. Even though you can use wind jutsus, they can't compare to my mastery of wind jutsus." Kakuzuha's knew that the clone was right, though he had other advantages over Fujin, in terms of control over wind jutsus. Fujin was in an entirely different league. Since he failed to give chase instantly, he understood that he wouldn't be able to catch up with Fujin anymore. However, he still didn't understand why Fujin escaped. He asked, "Why did you escape?" The clone shrugged and said, "What's the point of our fight? You don't dare to engage me in close range, and neither of us can hurt each other at mid-range. Kakuzu has agreed with the clone's words. Ever since they stopped fighting in close combat, neither of their attacks landed as both Fujin and Kakuzu's were too fast. However, he couldn't help but wonder, if that is the case, then why did he fight for so long? Besides, without the Hyuga and the Inuzuka ninja, he can't track Haiden anyway. Seeing Kakuzu in thought, the clone asked, by the way, what is up with your body? I'm pretty sure I slashed your heart. How are you still alive, and what's with all those threads? I haven't ever seen a body like yours. Kakuzu watched the clone with a deadpan expression. Of course, he wouldn't answer the question and instead asked, is that so? Why did you attack me after you destroyed my heart then? The clone replied, well, Sensei said that your body was very weird. I just wanted to make sure that you were dead. Fortunately, I made the right decision seeing how lively you are. The clone's reply was very casual. It caused Kakuzu to be even more confused. He wondered, did he leave some clones behind to chat with me? I expected them to use suicidal attacks, but it seems like they are content with wasting time. Besides, how could Renjuro analyze so much of my abilities in that short fight? He shouldn't have been aware of what happened after his shadow clone exploded. Having no intention to talk any further, Kakuzu was about to attack when he felt someone approaching. He looked back and saw Conan arriving. At that very instant, the clones launched vacuum bullets at Kakuzu. However, despite getting distracted, Kakuzu was still very alert. He dodged all the incoming attacks. The vacuum bullets kept traveling forward towards Conan, who was approaching from behind. She saw the incoming bullets and got out of the way as well, glancing at them as they passed her. She thought, vacuum bullets, Kakuzu's opponent is the spectral swordsman of the Hidden Leaf. Right after dodging, Kakuzu's fire and wind masks used their combination jutsu on the clones. While the clones dodged, Conan gathered a large number of paper sheets into 4 chakram-like shapes and threw them at the clones who were dodging the fire-wind combination jutsu. At the same time, Itachi arrived from the opposite direction as well. However, he didn't attack and instead stood next to Kakuzu and Conan, who were standing together. Dodging the combination jutsu wasn't difficult. However, Conan's paper chakrams were very difficult to dodge as they chased them continuously. The clones had to use vacuum cannons to shoot down the chakrams. After dealing with the jutsus, the 4 clones got together once again and stood opposite the 3 Akatsuki members. One of the clones muttered aloud, Uchiha Itachi. How many rogue ninjas does Akatsuki have? And who is the lady? Conan wasn't wearing any headband, so Fujin shouldn't know anything about her under normal circumstances, hence his clones acted ignorant. Conan and Itachi were slightly surprised. They believed that Fujin should be able to sense how strong Conan was even if he didn't know her. As for Itachi, there was no explanation needed. In addition, there was also Kakuzu's. Facing 3 rank S ninjas, there wasn't a hint of fear on Fujin's or his clones' faces. Conan said, the spectral swordsman of the Hidden Leaf, to not be afraid in such circumstances. It seems like everyone has still underestimated you. Meanwhile, Itachi wondered, Suzuki Fujin. I still remember him asking Lord Third for a reward for breaking my record in the Chunin exams. I didn't think he'd become so strong so quickly. I hope he'll be able to escape unharmed. Kakuzu has understood the thought process of his fellow members and said, all 4 of them are clones. That is why they aren't afraid. His main body escaped some time ago. He should have detected you 2 coming and decided to leave. Conan and Itachi understood why their opponent was fearless. Both were also surprised by the fact that Fujin was able to sense them. Conan asked Kakuzu, why were you fighting him? Our mission doesn't involve him. Kakuzu replied, he has a large bounty. Besides, his mission was the same as ours. We would have had to fight either way. They gave up after encountering me. We just need to destroy these 4 clones and continue. Conan and Itachi finally understood the entire picture. They were about to attack when one of the clones chuckled. He asked, gave up. Who told you that? Kakuzu was surprised. However, he immediately thought of a possibility. He thought, wait, were his orders false? Now that I think about it, his subordinates withdrew very quickly. Don't tell me that they just pretended to leave and instead went around me to continue their chase. In that case, Kakuzu's expression changed. Though he didn't particularly care about Haiden, getting played in such a manner by someone so much younger than him didn't feel good. Fujin's clone chuckled once more and said, by now, my main body should have already caught Haiden. As for you three, we will kill you here right now." Immediately, the 4 clones flickered and entered into an intense combat with the 3 Akatsuki members. Of course, the clones weren't a match for the 3 of them. They just wanted to get a feel of Uchiha Itachi and Konan and experience their prowess firsthand. Apart from checking out their chakra signatures, that was the main reason why Fujin left his shadow clones behind. Chapter 458 Collecting a Skeleton. After a few minutes of very high-speed combat, all 4 shadow clones were dispelled. However, the Konan was very annoyed. Fujin's clones had flickered almost non-stop and peppered the 3 of them with air and vacuum bullets all the time. As a result, dispelling them took longer than it should have. In fact, the main reason why the clones were dispelled was because they ran out of chakra. Konan looked at Kakuzu's and asked, "What did he mean by those words?" Kakuzu's replied, "I guess his team only pretended to retreat and went around me instead." However, his claim of being able to catch Haiden by now should be a bluff because his team would have slowed down due to having to move around me. Still, their team had a Hyuga and an Inuzuka, so this should be the path Haiden must have taken. We need to chase faster and catch up with them. Konan was about to speak when Itachi said, "This area has completely been destroyed by your jutsus. Finding Haiden's trail from here would be impossible." Konan frowned upon hearing Itachi's words. However, she realized that he was right. The terrain was completely ruined. All trees nearby were burnt, and even the snow below had melted into water. Whatever trail Haiden might have left behind would have long been destroyed in their fight. She said, "I will call Zetsu. We will depend on him to find Haiden." Kakuzu's and Itachi agreed with her decision. There was no other alternative. As for the person who had given them the headache, he was flying above the clouds while relaxing on Kaito's back. He let out a chuckle on receiving the memories of his clones, and thought, "I wonder if they are panicking right now. Though chances of it are low, oh well, it doesn't matter. This will ensure that they focus on finding Haiden, rather than chasing after those 3. Besides, let them experience 1% of the frustrations that I felt over the last couple of days." The words Fujin's clone said were all lies. He just wanted to make them feel a sense of urgency and fight seriously so that he could get a better measure of their abilities and strength. While Fujin could have done what his clone said, it involved a lot of risk. For starters, catching Haiden was difficult as he constantly kept on changing his location. Until he stopped moving, his squad would have a very difficult time catching up to him. Not to mention, they might have to face Akatsuki on their way back. With little chance of being able to read the bishop's memories, Fujin had no interest in taking such a huge risk. Lying on Kaito's back, Fujin began analyzing his battle with Kakuzu's and the skills of Konan and Itachi. He analyzed, "Konan and Itachi's powers are quite similar to what I remember. Though Konan's control over the paper is too good, if we fought seriously, I'll likely end up on the losing side. But once my wind domain is ready, she'll be at a huge disadvantage against me." Itachi barely did anything in the fight. I guess he didn't want Akatsuki to gain another S-rank ninja. I can't judge him yet. That said, there is no need to judge him. As for Kakuzu's, Fujin had a complicated expression on his face. He thought, rank S ninjas are difficult to deal with. Apart from Kisame, Kakuzu's might be the worst matchup for me. I guess he'll compete with the Raikage for that spot. My fighting style is based around high speed and relentless assault with jutsus that have high penetrating ability, though directly killing is difficult. One mistake against me would imply a hole opening up in their body. At that level of combat, one major injury is all I need to turn the advantage in my favor and eventually win the battle. However, against Kakuzu's, my fighting style fails. As long as I miss his heart, I basically do him no damage. His threads reconnect with each other after being pierced or cut through. They can also replace his missing body parts, so I can't whittle him down like whittled down Juzo. I guess dealing with him like Naruto did would be the best way to take him down. Actually, if he had split into 5 or rather, 4 bodies like he did against Asuma's team and Kakashi, I would have a better chance of defeating him. Those bodies individually aren't a threat to me. I could have used clones to destroy them one by one without letting Kakuzu's merge back with them. Unfortunately, he seemed to have realized that as well and hence never gave me the chance to do so. After I learn the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, I should start learning the Raisance Urance. It's about time I had an extremely destructive jutsu in my arsenal. Also, what do I do about the large-scale vacuum jutsu? I could have destroyed all 4 remaining hearts while he was pretending to be dead if I had such a jutsu. Sigh, so much to do. Though Fujin had quit the Anbu and devoted all his time to training, he still felt like he needed more time. It was a result of him trying to learn a lot of high-level techniques that weren't related to each other at the same time. Flying Thunder God and the Eight Inner Gates were extremely difficult techniques to learn and needed a lot of time. The Wind Domain was equally difficult, and Fujin didn't even have any guidance for that technique. As a result, Fujin never felt like he had enough time. Only after he finally masters these techniques would he have free time to pursue other techniques he intended to learn. While Fujin was in deep thought, Kaito continued flying. He flew across the land of hot water and entered the land of fire. However, he wasn't headed towards Konoha. Instead, he flew towards the land of rivers. One of the reasons why Fujin made his team retreat without him was because he wanted to make a quick trip to the land of birds. Back in the land of frost, without interference from Fujin and with Zetsu's help, the Akatsuki members quickly found Haiden. They had taken the threat of Fujin's clone seriously and hence moved very quickly. To their confusion, Zetsu and his clones didn't find any traces of either Fujin or his squad. After intercepting him, Kakuzu's fought with him and lost another heart before defeating Haiden. Intrigued by Kakuzu's immortality, Haiden agreed to join the Akatsuki and became Kakuzu's partner. In a remote place in the land of birds, a large flying saber-tooth landed in front of a hill. Kaito asked, "Is this the place, Fujin?" Fujin got off and said, "Most probably from what I remember. Let me inspect." Fujin's eyes glowed as he observed the hill. As he recalled from Sankoku's memories, he found the cave hidden behind one of the walls of the hill. Sankoku had sealed the entrance when he abandoned this hideout. Fujin destroyed the cave and entered it. He quickly moved towards a corner of the cave. He weaved a hand seal and placed his palm on the ground. The ground opened up and a skeleton appeared underneath it. Fujin stored the skeleton and thought, "If I manage to get my hands on Edo Tensei, I can use this skeleton to revive the Bishop Ketsuoki. I have a feeling that the intel I'll get from him will be the key to understanding what Jushin is and how those rituals work. At the very least, it'll be more useful than Sankoku's memories and his dead body." Fujin turned his attention to the cave. It had been a long time since the ritual was conducted here. Though the cave wasn't destroyed, it wasn't in an optimal condition due to the passing of time. Many seals had faded away, quite a few were no longer complete. Fujin still recorded as many of the seals as he could find in a scroll. Unlike the seals he found from Haiden's ritual, Fujin had no intention of sharing these seals with anyone. He left the cave and sealed the entrance once again before flying towards Konoha on Kaito's back. Though Haiden had escaped, this matter wasn't closed. In the original story, no one found the place where Haiden underwent the ritual. However, Fujin's involvement meant that it was no longer the case. Fujin, his squad and a couple dozen Yugaku-Rei ninjas had all been to the cave where the ritual took place. It was impossible to keep that place hidden anymore. Once it was understood that the cave had seals that were never seen before, every major force would flock to that cave. In addition, Haiden's abilities were revealed to Darui and other Kumo ninjas. If his abilities were linked with the seals in the cave, the entire ninja world could become chaotic once again. Chapter 459 The Key Person. While Fujin was aware of the complications that could arise, he didn't particularly care. Haiden will be joining Akatsuki and will be traveling with Kakuzuas. Without proper information, taking them down would be pretty much impossible unless multiple kaijus teamed up against them. The chances of that happening were more or less null. Even with proper information, it would take a couple of rank S ninjas to defeat them. Apart from Konoha, no other villages had a couple of rank S ninjas who took missions actively. As for the new seals, Fujin was hoping that someone would succeed in cracking them and understanding their secrets. He just intended to stay back and swoop in to steal their gains, in case he didn't succeed. Hence, Fujin decided not to interfere much in whatever would happen due to the recent movements. Kaito brought Fujin to Konoha from the land of birds in a few hours, though Fujin traveled a lot more, having to go to the land of birds, which was on the opposite side of the land of fire, and didn't even border it, and spent some time noting down the seals from Sankoku's ritual. He still reached Konoha earlier than his teammates thanks to Kaito. The two bade farewell a few kilometers from Konoha. On entering Konoha, Fujin went straight to Hiruzen's office. Hiruzen was surprised to see Fujin so quickly. He asked, "Is the mission over?" Fujin nodded and said, "More or less. Did my teammates return?" Hiruzen was confused by Fujin's question and wondered, "Did they split up?" He replied, "No. What happened during the mission?" Fujin replied, "Quite a bit. I might have some confidential news." Hiruzen understood the message and glanced at his amber guards. They immediately left the room and shut all doors and windows. Hiruzen activated the privacy seals. Fujin said, "The mission was a bit complicated. We managed to find the missing civilians. Unfortunately, they were all killed before we reached. It was the same as my previous mission against Jashin followers. The only difference was that we were late." Hiruzen sighed and said, "That's a shame." Fujin nodded and continued, "I have a feeling that something weird is going on. The dead bodies of the civilians were in a sealed-off cave in a remote mountain range. Inside the cave, there were also a few other dead bodies. I speculated that they were followers of Jashin. Their bodies were cremated. Meanwhile, the dead bodies of the civilians had decomposed at a very fast rate. Just by looking at the dead body, one would assume that they have been dead for several years. Probably due to that, Yamanaka-ken couldn't read any of their memories for us to understand what happened in the cave." A frown appeared on Hiruzen's face. The mission was a lot weirder than he expected. Fujin continued, "The inside of the cave was covered in various seals. It was almost as if they had created a formation of some sort, and there were numerous seals in the cave that I had never seen before." Hiruzen's eyes widened. He immediately understood its importance and why Fujin said the information be kept confidential. He asked, "Did you record the seals?" Fujin nodded. He took out a few scrolls and placed them on the desk. He said, "I recorded the seals I had never seen before in these scrolls. Unfortunately, I didn't have the time to look into what these seals do or what purpose they served in the formation." Hiruzen immediately opened the scrolls to check the seals. To his surprise, even he failed to recognize any of the seals. He thought, "These seals? Even the Uzumaki clan didn't have these seals, or could it be that they did have these seals but managed to keep them hidden from us? But if so, why did they surface suddenly? More importantly, who has access to them? Are there any survivors of the Uzumaki clan, or were they stolen by someone when Uzushio Gakure was destroyed? And why do these seals have to do with the death of those civilians?" Hiruzen had a lot of questions, and he was very curious about what was happening. Unfortunately for him, Fujin had no intention of telling him something that no one else apart from Fujin and Jashin's followers knew. Hiruzen asked, "Did you record the seal formation?" Fujin shook his head and said, "It was very complicated. I would have needed a lot of time to inspect and record it. I will recommend sending another Grandmaster to the cave secretly to record it. I would have done it myself after the Yuga Kurei ninjas left. But we received news of Haiden's whereabouts and gave chase." Hiruzen understood the importance of catching Haiden. He nodded and asked, "Did you catch him?" Fujin shook his head and said, "We chased for over half a day. Unfortunately, it seems like he was being chased by others as well, and hence was constantly on the move. He was chased by a couple of Kumo squads, and for some reason was also chased by Akatsuki. I called off the mission after we encountered Kakuzuas. I asked my teammates to withdraw and report the mission to the Hot Water Daimyo before coming back to the village. I stayed and fought Kakuzuas until he received reinforcements." Fujin looked at Hiruzen and said in a serious tone, "Uchiha Itachi has joined Akatsuki as well, along with Kaminari Juzo Kakuzuas and Kisame. That is 5 powerful rogue ninjas in Akatsuki, even though 2 of them are now dead. It is concerning that so many rogue ninjas are in it." Hiruzen was already aware of all the details. He acted as if it was the first time he heard it, and had a grim expression. He said, "Yes, this development is concerning." Fujin added, "Apart from Itachi, a blue-haired Kunachi also assisted Kakuzuas. She could control paper, and was a rank S ninja as well. My clones fought against the 3 of them while I retreated. I took a different route in case they chased me, so I guess I overtook my teammates at some point. They should arrive in the village soon." Hiruzen nodded and fell into deep thought. Fujin had given him a lot of unexpected news, be it Akatsuki's movements, the dead civilians, or the never-seen-before seals. On analyzing, he realized, everything finally comes back to one person, that is Haiden. Who is that kid, and how did he get access to something like this? He looked at Fujin and asked, "Is there any chance we can capture Haiden?" Fujin replied, "Very difficult. We have lost his trail. Even assuming that he is alone, finding him will be very difficult. Not to mention those 3 rank S ninjas from the Akatsuki. If they were there to kill him, then it's already too late, and if they were there to recruit him, then I'm not sure how much manpower we will need to get him from them. I'm not confident in being able to kill either of those 3 by myself." Hiruzen understood Fujin. Facing 3 rank S ninjas was very difficult. Even if Haiden was accompanied by just 1 rank S ninja, Konoha would struggle to capture Haiden unless he encountered Jiraiya or Hiruzen, or decided to attack Konoha for some reason. Hiruzen sighed and said, "Then there is very little we can do. Regardless, you have done a great job. tell me about Kakuzu's abilities in the report. We don't have enough information on him. For now, I will call a council meeting tomorrow. These new seals will generate a lot of interest and could start a new conflict. So our village should be prepared. Also, the clans would want to study the seals as well. I will send a grandmaster and a squad there to investigate it properly and record the formation. In the meeting, inform everyone about your findings. It'll expose the fact that you are a grandmaster in Fuin Jutsu. But this matter is serious. Fujin nodded and said, I understand. By now, Igawatga and Akatsuki were aware of the fact that Fujin was a grandmaster. He didn't know to whom the information had spread and who all knew it. Regardless, he couldn't count on it being a surprise anymore. As such, it was pointless to keep it a secret anymore. Hiruzen said, I will call you later. Fujin was about to leave when he stopped and suddenly asked, Grandpa, I am facing an issue. I was wondering whether you could help me. Hiruzen's instincts immediately warned him. The word grandpa along with Fujin's tone made him realize that Fujin was about to ask a favor. He sighed internally and asked, as long as I can, what is the issue? While he spoke, he prayed, I hope he doesn't ask for my kidney this time. Chapter 460 Who is more shameless? Hiruzen was indeed very fearful of Fujin's tendencies to ask something very unreasonable. And even though what Fujin asked would be unreasonable, in most cases, it was something Hiruzen couldn't refuse without looking like a terrible leader and damaging the image he had created. Fujin said, it's nothing too serious. I was developing a range of vacuum jutsus to make my arsenal more versatile. Unfortunately, no matter what I do, I can't create a vacuum jutsu that has a wide range like say the Great Breakthrough Jutsu whenever I try. My vacuum core collapses. Do you know any large-scale wind vacuum jutsu? Hiruzen breathed a sigh of relief on hearing the request and thought, fortunately he isn't asking for my kidney this time. He answered, though I can use the wind vacuum technique. I'm not very proficient in it. I don't have such a jutsu. However, there is someone else in the village who does know it. Fujin knew who that someone else was. He was hoping that Hiruzen knew the jutsu, or that he would mention that Danzo knew it, however. To keep up the act, he still asked with a curious expression on his face, who is it? Hiruzen replied, it's Elder Danzo. Fujin put up a thoughtful expression and appeared to be in deep thought for a few seconds. Finally, he looked at Hiruzen and said, I rebuked him quite a bit in the only 2 meetings we had. I doubt he'll tell me about it. Is there any chance you can get it from him and then teach it to me, Grandpa? Hiruzen looked at Fujin with a deadpan expression. He cursed internally. So he wants Danzo to ask for my kidneys. Hiruzen coughed and said, Fujin, at your level, especially considering your mastery of wind vacuum technique, I'll recommend you to depend on yourself. Every person's understanding of the technique differs slightly. If you just copy it from others, then you won't be able to form your own ideas and might lose out on something special. Fujin sighed and replied, I had the same feeling. That was why I never asked you about this and worked on it by myself. Unfortunately, it caused me to lose out big time. If I had such a jutsu, I might have been able to kill Kakuzu's during this fight. Hiruzen's eyes widened. He was aware that Kakuzu's was far stronger than someone like Juzo. Fujin continued, unfortunately, I don't think he'll ever give me such an opening again. I just don't want to miss out on any such opportunities to eliminate strong foes in the future. Though I might lose out on the opportunity to create my original jutsu that is very compatible with me. I'm willing to make that sacrifice for the sake of our village. If anyone were to hear Fujin's words, they would be shocked and impressed by Fujin's righteousness and his spirit of sacrifice for the sake of the village. For a moment, even Hiruzen was caught off guard. He couldn't help but think, he is asking for a jutsu. Why does it sound like he is making some big sacrifice for the village? Fortunately for Hiruzen, he was no stranger to Fujin's greedy nature and saw through his lies in a few seconds. He let out a sigh as well and said, that's a shame, but I can understand your reasoning. When I was young, I was filled with the spirit of sacrifice for our village and had to make such decisions several times. You can ask Elder Danzo for the jutsu. Though you two had some disagreements, both of you want the well-being of our village. Such disagreements shouldn't get in the way of helping out each other, otherwise, the village wouldn't function. This time, it was Fujin's turn to be surprised by Hiruzen's shamelessness. He sighed internally and muttered to himself, why did I expect this shameless old fox to become kind and helpful? Asking it from Danzo, as if he'd give it to me. If such disagreements didn't get in the way, the village might still have had the Uchiha clan. Unfortunately, just like Hiruzen, Fujin couldn't speak his thoughts out loud, in fact since Hiruzen recommended it. He would have to ask Danzo for the jutsu, otherwise it would be clear to Hiruzen that Fujin has a major issue with Danzo, causing him to be even more suspicious considering the fact that Fujin and Danzo had never had any confrontation. He said, "All right. I'll try asking Elder Danzo." Fujin took his leave. A smile appeared on Hiruzen's face as he imagined the scene of Fujin asking Danzo for a jutsu. He muttered, "Tomorrow's meeting will be interesting in more ways than one." Hiruzen stopped his work and opened the scrolls Fujin had given him. He began studying the seals that Jashin Bishop had inscribed in the cave. Though Fujin had failed in studying them, Hiruzen was far more experienced than Fujin. Even if he couldn't understand the entire seal, he was hopeful of uncovering some of their functions. While Hiruzen studied the seals, Fujin returned to his house after leaving one shadow clone in the Haikage building to meet up with his team when they returned. After entering his house, Fujin thought, asking Danzo for the jutsu. That seems to be a dead end. Even if I ignore his nature, it hasn't been a long time since I killed a couple of the root ninjas he sent after me. Though I left no clues, it is inevitable that he would suspect me considering the fact that they were trailing me. It looks like I'll have to depend on myself to master this jutsu. The only other way would be if I catch Danzo outside the village, ambush him with my clones, and make him use that jutsu. Unfortunately, that is just too difficult. That bastard's movements are too secretive. It'll be hard to know if and when he leaves the village. Oh well, time to return to my training. Once details of Haiden's abilities and the news of new seals get leaked, every major village will get restless for some time before things calm down. By the time things calm down, I want to master the Flying Thunder God jutsu. Even if it is just short distances, being able to teleport will be very handy. I also want to master Danzo's curse seals by then and create my own seals. I'll finally be able to continue working on my organization then. Of course, I can't stop working on Wind Domain and the Gate of Life either. Only after I'm done with these, can I move on to other areas that need my attention. Though Fujin had just returned from a mission, Fujin began training immediately. He had no time to waste. The events of the Naruto story were only a few months away. Fujin no longer had years' worth of time to train. Fortunately, the soldier pill he had consumed earlier still had a couple of days left, so being tired wasn't an issue. The day continued as normal for the people in Konoha. Fujin's teammates returned a few hours later and met up with his clone. They informed him about their meeting with the daimyo. Apart from that, nothing else happened during their return journey. As for Hiruzen, he sent messengers to every clan leader and elders to inform them about the council meeting the next day. Fujin already knew about it, considering the nature of the meeting. Hiruzen didn't invite any civilian council members. He studied the seals until late at night. He took a look at every seal that Fujin had handed him. Though he didn't study any seal in detail, he was still expecting some canes. To his surprise, he failed to figure out the functions of any seal. He thought, these seals are quite different from the normal seals we use. It looks like this will require a thorough study to understand what these seals do. To completely understand their functions, it might take years. I'll need to hand these seals to every Grand Master in the village and have them study it. Fortunately, I won't have to persuade them, as everyone will be intrigued by these new seals. Apart from this, the only way to speed up the process of understanding the seals would be if that formation has any clues. Regardless, these seals have the potential to cause a breakthrough in our current mastery of seals. If their functions are useful, then Konoha will have an advantage over other villages. Hiruzen could easily see the advantages of these seals. While he couldn't be sure, any chance of getting an advantage over your enemies that didn't involve much risk was precious. Hiruzen had no intention of letting it go. He immediately sent his Anbu ninjas to call for a few ninjas. Within half an hour, 4 ninjas gathered in his office. They were Kakashi, the Anbu commander Eagle, the Fuin Jutsu Grandmaster of the Senju clan, and the Fuin Jutsu Grandmaster of the Yamanaka clan. Hiruzen informed them about Fujin's mission and findings, and shared some of the new seals with the Grandmasters. Seeing seals that they had never seen before immediately made them very curious. Kakashi and Eagle understood the importance as well. Hiruzen instructed, leave the village secretly and reach that cave. Once you do, record the entire formation properly. Don't miss a single detail. Once you have recorded everything, destroy the cave. No other village should get a hand on these seals, though Yuga Kurei sent a few ninjas earlier. They didn't include any seal master, so they should be unaware of the uniqueness of these seals. I want it to stay that way. The cave should be empty, as the process of storing the dead bodies should be long done. However, if Yuga Kurei has stationed a few ninjas at the cave, Eliminate them and don't leave behind any proof. Everyone nodded seriously. They understood the importance of the matter and the need to keep it a secret from other villages. They left the village secretly under the cover of the night. The next morning, the Council of Konoha met once again. It was the third time a council meeting was convened due to Fujin.